Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Shooting the Shit. I am here with a amazing guest. Mihir, I forgot to actually clarify this, but I think it's Wanchoo.
That is correct. Absolutely
Okay,
spot on.
so from Fantasy Book Critic, a review site which is spectacular. Uh, if you want to just give a better introduction than my really bad one about who you are and what you do, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you for having me, John. My name is Mihir Wanchoo. For those who don't know me, I am a part of Fantasy Book Critic. I hang out over there. I review books by authors. I interview authors. We like to do cover reveals. We are still standing. From we for opened up in 2007, a long, long, long time ago. I wasn't a part of Fantasy Book Critic back then, but I joined in from 2000, late 2000, well, not late, but like 2009, and I've been a part of Fantasy Book Critic since then. We have had lots of changes. We've been going strong since then. We are a team of reviewers. It's Lucas, it's Caitlin, it's Lena, it's Shazzy, it's David, it's Matthew Higgins, who's also Higgin Whole Books from YouTube, and me. So we make up the Fantasy Book Critic team. You can check out our website for loads and really loads, like over 3,000 plus reviews. Again, more than hundreds of interviews and just everything. We are also on Twitter at Fantasy Book Critic, newly on Instagram at Fantasy Book Critic. So, and on YouTube, there's a few videos as well on YouTube about interviews with authors. So that's my spiel.
I just also want to note to anyone who watches this, the link to your website is in the description, and they can go there and check out all the awesome reviews. And actually, I think you also have a YouTube channel, right?
It's fledgling. There's Joe Byrne. Hey,
Joe
Joe.
Byrne. What a great man.
He is a lovely guy. And I'm
He
reading
is
his book as well, Wistful Ascending. It's, finally, I had it for quite a while, but I was able to, it was always something. And of course, SPFP also takes up a huge chunk of time. Then I had a trip to India, but I finally got started reading it. And he, I like his bio in the Twitter. He mentioned something like lots, like, Marvel movie like, but without, this with too many dad jokes or corny jokes. So A plus.
All right. So I just, before we get into things, I just want to extend a thank you to you for showing up, and also just in general, because you've been a pretty good friend. I've been in a little bit of, drama here and there on Twitter, and you always reach out and, talk to me. And whenever something goes wrong, I feel like you always message me just to check in. And I just really appreciate that. You're such a cool guy, such a good friend. And I'm just so happy you're here.
Well, you flatter me, but no, I like to check in on people whom I consider my friends. I always and Twitter is, of course, everybody knows Twitter is sometimes odd, sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's full of drama. So I try to stay away from it because who wants that stress in your life besides all the others? So
listen, Mihir, I try to stay out of it. I do.
No, you don't. No, you don't. I have a prime example of how you do not. Do not stay out of Twitter drama. You most recently tweeted something about, here, I have the tweet as well. You, sir, have went away and tweeted something really horrendous. There was a tweet about, there's this, of course, on Twitter, everybody's like, tweeting memes and stuff like that. So there was this tweet about a villain you liked more than the hero, which was, tweeted by Trin. And she, of course, had posted about something Star Wars. I don't know who the character is. I know it's Adam Driver, but I don't know. I haven't watched Star Wars at all. But then you did the ultimate sacrilege. You tweeted about Joffrey. That's what gets you into trouble. Let me say that.
Okay. Esme. I will address you in a minute, sir.
Okay.
Esme can't stay because she needs to sleep. Just wanted to pop in to wish us a wonderful chat, and thanks for being amazing.
Thank you, Esme.
I love Esme. She is a spectacular reviewer and an amazing person, and also another great friend of mine. She talks to me all the time, and
I knew about her reviews. I just wasn't I hadn't been I didn't get to know her. I recently got to know her because Esme is special surprise for everyone watching. Esme is joining the FPC SPFPO team for SPFPO 2009. I mean, not 2009, SPFPO, the 9th edition. So hooray for us. And thank you, Esme, for joining us with your, we look forward to Esme's lovely insight, her amazingly constructed reviews for, the future SPFPO edition.
Yeah, she's a great reviewer. I like to read what she writes, and she's written the most amazing review of my own book. And so, sure, I am a little biased. I understand that.
Just a little.
But I still think she writes amazing other reviews. So it's not just me.
Yep, she does.
I liked her before she read my book. Not as much as I do now, but
I know, Joe. It's it's tricky, where you land in which
luck of the
group.
draw.
Yeah, the luck of the draw sometimes can be horrible because we've had some great titles just landing with judges, and it's not the judges' fault. It's just that the book doesn't match, and it's gonna be fun. I mean, looking forward to it. But yeah, sometimes it's really horrible. I know Joe had entered his book, and it didn't work out. It's the tricky thing, and I think Mark Lawrence specifically talks about this as well. But we'll get more into that. Sorry, Joe. I'm still going to try to get you to finish your book and give you, a solid review, depending on how I like it, which I do already. Spoiler alert.
Yes, I will definitely. We'll talk more about SPFBO in a minute. But first, we have something to discuss. Apparently, it's a true hot take.
It is.
So yes, Esme, you are welcome. Thank you for showing up. You're great. Yes. Okay. So what's the hot take for today? We're right about to get into that because, so just to refresh everyone's memory, Mihir saw a tweet of mine. It was to tag a picture of a villain you liked more than the hero.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, I made an egregious offense because I put Joffrey Baratheon.
You did.
Bye, Esme. Have a great night.
Good night, Esme.
So, first, before I give my answer, I guess I have a question for you, Mihir.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a two-pronged question because the first half of the question is, what the hell hero do you like more than Joffrey in Game of Thrones?
Okay. Do you want to answer that, or do you want to wait to hear both parts of your question?
I'll ask the other part.
Okay.
So what hero do you like more than Joffrey? And then what is it about Joffrey that makes you not like him, I guess, as a villain?
The fact that he is a sociopath in the making also. All right, just leaving that aside. But okay. All right, talking about heroes in also fun fact, I almost thought of unfollowing you because it was that sacrilegious that you liked it. Because let me just be clear, A Song of Ice and Fire has excellent villains. Like, it has truly some excellent villains, like Littlefinger and stuff like that. But that's aside. Joffrey. Okay. What heroes do I like? Okay, I won't say heroes because I don't think they're always heroes. So I'm going to list a few characters whom I like. And I think the only hero or heroic character, one of the few heroic characters in A Song of Ice and Fire is Brienne. Please forgive me if I mispronounce the name. I've been pronouncing them in my head for a long while. So I think Brienne, the knight, is possibly the most heroic character. She's one of my favorite characters. I like Jaime Lannister. I think he's whatever arc he's on, redemption or not, I like him. Of course, the first book you hate him. The second book you do the same, and the third book is where it all flips over. I even like the Onion Knight. Like, he was one of my favorite characters. He's with Stannis, then he's hopefully going to go and meet Jon Snow. He's there. Then there's, thinking about villainous character, one of my favorite characters is Varys. I just love the actor who played him in the Conlet Hill, the actor who played him in the show. I think that solidified Varys more because I really jive. Like, of course, in the books, you're kind of unsure what Varys is. And there's a lot of theories about who Varys might be, what his background might be. But I liked Varys as a character. He might be duplicitous and he might be doing anything, but I like him as a character. He brings intrigue to the show. And most of all, I love Dany. I'm not really worried about what happened in Game of Thrones season 8, but I like her arc where she's going, that she's this unknown person gifted with power, thrown into this really horrible world, and now she's trying to make sense of it while still trying to be heroic. And George R. R. Martin loves this to do. He'll put these characters, he won't give them easy choices because, with other fantasy books, there's always the easy choice and the slightly less easier choice, and the heroic character will choose the less heroic, the less easier choice. George R. R. Martin just gives them like a horrible choice and a worse choice, and then the heroic characters have to figure out what to do. That's what essentially Dany's been doing, right? She finds her dragons are born, but she loses her child, she loses her husband, she loses the Khalasar. Then she's forced to journey to another place. She finds those slaves, she frees them and still is kind of having a hard time of it. So that's more like. But Joffrey, no, come on, like he okay, he's a sociopath in the making. He probably is a full blown sociopath. He's a teenager in the books. I'm not talking about the show, because the show he's a little bit older, but in the books, I believe he's like anywhere between 13 to 15. He's a horrible teenager. He's horrible to Tyrion and to almost everybody else. Yep. Hey, John, we do. I am on Fantasy Book Critic, at Fantasy Book Critic on Twitter, and also at Fantasy Book Critic on YouTube. But yeah, so what's not to like about him? I hate him. Like when he was dying, choking in his on his own self in the third book. Spoiler alert! But I cheered, and I'm sorry that makes me a bad person, but I did cheer because I didn't like him at all.
Okay, so basically everything you just said about Joffrey is why I love him so much, because to hate a villain in such a way, like I'm somebody who, I think most people know this, I'm kind of a cold, emotionless asshole.
Okay, I'll disagree with a little bit, but go ahead.
And so when I read a book, I'm not usually affected by things much. And the fact that I feel such hatred for this character, there's not many characters that pull out that like visceral reaction, and he is one of them. And the fact that he's able to do that is why I love him so much. I just love how much of an asshole. Like, I hate everything he does. I can't stand the kid. Even worse in the show, played brilliantly.
Yep.
And that's why I love him so much.
Okay, fair point. But I have a follow-up question for you. What do you think about Roose Bolton then? If you like Joffrey Baratheon that much, what about Roose Bolton?
I mean, I honestly love almost every villain in the series. I think George R.R. Martin is so good at making people just hateable. Like, I don't know. I love so many of his characters. Cool. You just got subscribed to from John, who is
Thank you, Sir John.
Another indie author, or upcoming indie author, I should say, and YouTuber. So yeah, John's a pretty good guy. Always active in the community, and so yeah, good dude.
Well, thank you again, John. It's lovely. Sorry, we have been lagging behind on the YouTube interviews, but we'll try to pick up that again. I'm really bad at that stuff, so I'm the lone person trying to push, to do more YouTube interviews and stuff like that, but I'm just bad at it.
Well, I don't think you're bad at it, Mihir.
I am. I'm being frank. But anyways, no, continue on. So you're saying something about George R. R. Martin has really which is a fascinating point. Do you think maybe it's because he worked in Hollywood that he is able to write such despicable characters?
I don't know. I really don't. But I just have a follow-up question, I guess.
Sure.
Because you said earlier that your reaction to me liking Joffrey was so bad that you considered unfollowing me. And I want to know, I have to know, Mihir, if Joffrey is not a lovable villain, not for not the love to hate, because no one loves him.
Yeah.
But liking a villain because they're a villain.
Okay.
If you can't, if Joffrey is not it, why? I guess what would be another villain maybe that you could feel? Do you just not like villains that are like the worst possible people?
I don't know. I don't know if I can like them. I feel they're useful in a book because you kind of get to see the worst of humanity. I would say I like horrible villains, so because I like to hate them so much. Like that's
exactly
a good written villain, especially, and I don't mean just cardboard cutout villains who are just bad for the sake of it. No, because that's another good thing about George R. R. Martin. He gives us the psychology behind why those people are like that, or at least what their reasoning or thinking is. Joffrey, he's a spoiled brat. He's made king. His mother loves him, and his mother just tries to remove everybody's access around him. So yeah, he feels the need to do what he does, and it's very understandable. It's hard for me to like. I mean, I just hate villains. Like, if it's a good written villain, I will hate them. I will hate them, and I will continue to hate them. I don't want to say I like them or I like their presence in the book. I wish that they would die horrible deaths, but that's as far as my love goes.
Okay, so I think we just approach it differently. Maybe like you like them because they're bad, but you don't want to say you like
Well,
them,
I'll
perhaps.
I'll put it this way. I was, when I was a kid, I was bullied sometimes by some really horrible people. So
Yes.
in my mind, of course, they're not as bad as Joffrey or anybody else. Let me just make that clear. There's just, just mean
I
kids.
hope not.
Yeah, no, they're just mean kids. So in my mind, because I was, I always disliked that. Like I always wonder, why are they doing this? Because as a kid, it wouldn't make sense. I was like thinking, like, oh, I'm not being mean to them. I'm not being mean to anybody else. Why are they being mean to me? Or why are they like not, they're doing these hurtful things? So in my mind, that's why I didn't understand. Of course, now I do. Looking back, they're just maybe they had horrible stuff going on. Maybe they're just bullies, whatever it might be. So that's why
Right.
I want these characters in the books. I don't want to meet them in real life, but I love doing it
Right.
because it's like
Yes.
the inner child in me feels passionate because they're like, oh, somebody's standing up to them, somebody's beating the back, which is why another reason I love David Gemmell's books as well. Because in David Gemmell's books, he comes up with some really, truly despicable villains, some truly conflicted individuals who might do heroic and bad things. And then he has these heroes who are great characters, but who decide to take the right stand or decide to do the right thing. And it kind of makes the child in me happy, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. I think that you can look at me and know I was bullied, right?
You had opinions, right? They didn't really understand those opinions.
Actually, to be fair, when I was a kid, I was the quietest, shyest. I didn't have opinions. I was just quiet.
Okay.
I just, just the nerdy, shy guy is what
Mhm.
I was when I was young. And also, the first few years of my life, I was like stupendously young because my birthday is July 2nd. And so I started school and I was
Oh,
very young.
yeah.
And then I actually stayed back in third grade because I had a like a lazy eye that
Mhm.
the eye doctors in Virginia said that should heal by itself. And then we moved to Vermont and I
Mhm.
started school. And I think I went until second grade and I still had a problem with it.
Mhm.
And I couldn't read or write. And so then I had to get eye surgery.
Mhm.
And I also needed glasses after the surgery, I guess.
Yeah.
And so then I became one of the oldest kids in my grade because I stayed back, but I was still very, very small for my age. So it didn't really matter. uh,
Yeah.
but yes, I definitely have experience with bullying as well. That happened throughout my entire school career, mostly until I got uh, junior year, I think, in high school when I grew a backbone.
Oh.
I mean, they still tried, but it
Uh-huh.
didn't work anymore. I just kind of laughed. Um,
Oh man,
so
I'm so
yeah,
sorry, John.
you know, oh, I don't care. It was so long ago, and the worst one died of a brain aneurysm. Like
Uh,
I don't know, 8 years after we graduated. He was young. So I thought that was karmic justice, and I might have smiled when I saw the post. And I know that's a terrible thing, but I am admittedly a terrible person, so it doesn't matter.
I disagree about that, but go ahead.
Just, I'm not that bad, I guess, but I do have this sense of justice, and apparently I've
Mhm.
had it ever since I was a child, where it's just like if something is wronged by like to me, I
Mhm.
guess I don't know what it is. And I don't know where it came from either.
Hey,
Uh,
it's there at the DNA. I do have another question for you because you're talking about all of this.
I mean that's fair.
I'm liking John more and more. Who are your favorite heroes in A Song of Ice and Fire? Because if you like the villains so much, who are the characters whom you perceive to be heroic or whom you like for their good qualities in A Song of Ice and Fire?
This is a really hard question because there's not many that you can like really point to as being a hero.
Hmm.
Most of them I hate, if we're being honest. Like all the
Fair.
Starks, I really can't stand.
Yeah.
I liked Eddard Stark quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think everyone did. And then
He was okay.
okay,
I
I
have
actually
opinions. I have opinions.
Rob
I'll
Stark
shut
was
up.
the one that I wanted to read more of all the time, and we never got that.
Yep.
Bran Stark, I fucking hate that kid. So boring. Every time I get to a page like his chapter, I'm like, oh god, here we go with this stupid Raven shit. And then of course he's crippled, so like, you know, I like reading disabled characters sometimes, but just his specific situation, he's so like
helpless.
Yeah, he can't really do anything, and he doesn't really do anything except think. And I'm like, this is boring. Although Hodor is pretty great.
Yeah.
Arya Stark, I know this is kind of a hot take. Don't really like her.
Oh, I'm with you on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I disliked Arya when I first read the books. I don't know, and it was strange because everybody loved Arya, and I was like,
Everyone loves her.
Yeah, this is.
She's so
I was
boring.
like, this is another psychopath in the making. She is really a psychopath in the making. So I still don't like her. But the TV, the actor who played her in the TV show kind of softened my view. But I did not like Arya Stark. I still don't like her. I prefer. I'm going to differ with you about Bran Stark. I love his chapters. Like for me, and I know you're not alone because Rob J. Hayes also hates him and dislikes like him always make about Brandon's jokes about Bran. But I love Bran, like his chapters. Like for me, he's one of my characters that I'm very much intrigued by, and I'm hoping to see what of course George R. R. Martin plans to do. But he's at least one of my favorite characters. But yeah, Arya Stark, John Douglas has mentioned that as well. But yeah, no, I cannot still stand Arya Stark and Ned Stark. I feel like he's noble and everything, but he's an idiot. Like he's a noble idiot.
He is such a painful idiot.
Yes, I'm like, you are supposed to lead your people. Your honor means nothing if your people and your family gets hurt. Screw your honor. If you make your family survive, if you make your kingdom's people not come into harm, your honor means nothing. When you're dealing with honorable people, you should deal with them with honor. But when you're dealing with dishonorable people, you don't care about your honor. It's you do what's right for your people and make them survive. And so yeah,
that's right.
Another strong opinion. So you're bringing it out of me, John.
Like, what can I say? It's my own hot takes that seem to just pull it out. I sap it from everyone else, I guess. Sansa or Sansa? I don't know.
Sansa,
I think it's Sansa. Okay, yeah. But how do you feel about her?
I actually liked her always because let me explain why, or at least I'll say what. Then I'll shut up about it. Sorry, I don't want to be monopolizing your time. When we see her, she's a brat in the books. But then she grows from the second book onwards because when she sees the reality of her life, I always felt that was understandable. Like a kid who's been brought up by her mother and her father in a loving environment, and of course who understands what where she stands in the social or in the royal hierarchy. Yeah, she has an inflated sense of ego, but that quickly just dissipates. It goes away when she's faced with the reality of how her precarious position is, and then she kind of understands even more. So I actually enjoyed Sansa Stark. Again, I think I must be in the minority. I preferred Sansa Stark over Arya Stark. Still do. Nothing to do with the actress, but I just liked her character better.
Yeah, I actually agree. I'm not a huge fan of hers, but I did like her story. Some of her chapters were brutal and just so heartbreaking. So I did like reading her. Some of the politics that happened, it's good. But overall, again, she's not like a favorite character. It's like another okay, we're back to her. So to answer your question, which I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it was about
which characters do you consider heroic? Yeah.
This might be weird, but Tyrion Lannister is also kind of I'd say he's my favorite character in the whole series. But I love him. But see, that's why I made the Joffrey pick so easy, because most of the heroes or people that are mostly heroic, I just really didn't like. And so I don't know. This is
that's true.
Fun comment. I disagree. I can't stand Tolkien. But
no, I get where John is coming from. I know there is a discussion somewhere on Facebook. I remember this. I think Peter McLean had posted this, something like the effect of Martin was influenced to write The Lord of the Rings because he served in World War I. He saw the horrific nature of those, of war, which is why he wrote about what he did. Of course, Tolkien has his own faults, but that being aside, and then that meme had said something like, that George R. R. Martin was a vocal dissenter. He basically volunteered in the Peace Corps, and now he's written this. It's fascinating to kind of imagine what led to people writing the way they do. It's a toss-up. I don't know. I don't hate Tolkien. I kind of prefer Martin over Tolkien just because of, I feel like I have a more connection with Martin's books because his characters seem a little bit more real. But of course, Tolkien's world building, eons long, like it's almost surpasses what Martin is trying to attempt.
I would say pointless long, but I know that's again a hot take.
Hey, Tolkien finished the story. Martin,
hey, this is so true.
Yeah, so in that the story, the debate is over there. Martin's story is not complete. God knows for
Right. To be fair, did not Tolkien work on his series for like a stupendously long time before it came out? So perhaps if
but so
Martin didn't publish, like.
But Martin has been also working for now 33 years. He started in the early, like somewhere in 1990s.
97?
No, that 96 was when his first book got published, but he'd been working from like 92, 93, or maybe even earlier. So, 33 plus years, only 5 books. And now the last 6 book is like 6 years, 12 years. More,
I don't listen. I'm of two minds of this debate.
Okay.
And I'm not even sure if you're posing what I'm about to debate. So don't think that I'm arguing with you here. But sure. I, as you know, am an author myself.
Yep.
Before I was an author, I feel like I wouldn't have much ground to stand on here. But even as just a reader, I was never like pissed off at Martin. It was like, write when you want to write and get and put out the best product possible. And if you have issues or writer's block or whatever is going on, take your time. I'm not mad at George R. R. Martin. I'm not mad at Rothfuss. I'm disappointed that we haven't gotten the next books. But as an author, I genuinely am so baffled and confused and just mind boggled at how long it's taking for these people to write a single book. Now, admittedly, their books are much longer than mine. But shit, I have averaged like a book a year, and I don't understand. I just can't comprehend spending 12 years on a single book.
True, and it there's also, for those who might not know, sorry, we didn't mean to go into this topic, but I'm just going to quickly speak a little bit, and then maybe we'll shut up about this. I'm not in the finish the book George camp. Yes, right. I understand he has his problems, whatever. Rothfuss, we'll get to that. I feel he's being a little bit of a scumbag with his charity.
Oh, I completely agree.
Yeah, so we'll talk, but that's separate. Martin, I just feel if he was a little bit more honest with himself and with his fans, like he can just come out and say, you know what, guys, I don't know. I have the meatiness knot. I have this problem. You can just say, I'm having problems writing the book. I honestly don't know if I'll ever get to finish this book. I'm going to take my time. If he just came out and said that, that's fine. That's okay. When you're, and I'll even extend a further thing. I'm fine with authors taking up to 4 years between books. If the Olympics can take every 4 years, sure. Sometimes authors can take up to 4 years. Real life intercedes. You have other stuff to do. Sometimes there's other stressors. All of that is fine. When it goes beyond 4 years, okay, there's something else going on. So maybe just be upright. It's been 12 years plus, and he still gives out the same shit. I know he had done something like, if in 2019, if I don't finish by 2019, you can go all, what's that Stephen Cook, misery on me. But thankfully, nobody took him up on his offer. But come on, man, if you're that late, his publishers and sure must be pissed at him, but they can't really do anything. So it's fine.
Right.
He's going to take his time. He's going to do, because now he, of course, has the money to do, if he wasn't as rich, maybe that would be a different thing. But
certainly. And plus, he also has other obligations, like that new show that was just announced, the Hedge Knight one or whatever. He's confirmed to be the writer on it.
Oh, has he? I didn't know that.
The article I read said that he was going to be the writer on it.
The Dunk and Egg novellas, he's planning for like
Yeah,
9 to 12 of them. He's only released 3 so far. So now, oh dear.
right.
I'm not. Okay. Let's not talk about Martin. It's just going to get more and more pissy. Not for him wanting to finish the books. He can take his time, but at least not for
Right.
being upfront about what his problems are. And of course, I know that he writes on the special typewriter machine, and then he's a gardener, so he
Right.
sometimes writes and writes and writes, and then he decides, oh no, this isn't working, so he has to throw those pages back, and then he has to come back, and then he go back. So that doesn't really help. But you know what? In a world full of really awesome writers, it's a shame that Martin is not able to adapt. Maybe just let me put it
Yeah.
this way.
I don't understand like why things are taking that long. It seems crazy to me, but to each their own, I guess. If we ever get the next book, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah.
I think he's a fantastic writer. And as for Rothfuss,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the empty promises is pretty gross.
Oh yeah.
And I don't like that part of it. I'm still on, but I'm not like mad at him for not releasing the book, but like, dude, don't lie.
Oh, not only don't lie, he basically told his followers and his fans that pay for this, and I'll release a chapter.
Right.
It's been now more than close to 1 year, which he has not done. And then he's also been his charity he's been pushing for like so many years. I'm sure it must have helped somebody. I don't know. Maybe I think on Reddit there's like there's the fantasy, like not our fantasy, but there's one specific subreddit forum where they talk about this, and they have kind of done a lot of leaks about what it is and what it. But he's a little bit of a scumbag at right now, at least. And I apologize
Yes.
to his fans, but I don't know. You don't think that way, but I feel like if you're stringing your fans along, asking them to donate the money, and then taking a cut of it and keeping it for whatever reason, yeah, you're a scumbag. Also, R.R. Wordy, for those of you, Pat Rothfuss fans who haven't discovered him, read his books. They're so much better.
Oh, they're so much better.
Yeah. It is a chunky book. It has, there's so much world building going on. The story, I'll say this, the premise seems familiar. It is similar, but it's not the same. And it's not, it's not a copy or something like that. And, R.R. Wordy's next book is going to come out this year. He's already working on the third book. So I have more trust in Ronnie Wordy than I ever do at Pat Rothfuss.
To be fair, I think you should have more trust in almost any author at this point.
That's true. That's true.
But I mean, honestly, between Martin Rothfuss and Scott Lynch, like if they were just upfront and said if there's communication, no one would be as mad at them. I don't think.
I won't put Scott Lynch in this corner. I will say Scott Lynch has been quite upfront because he's had mental health issues. His marriage kind of went under way back in the day. He's been quite upfront about it,
right.
And he disappears. And he disappears when he needs to. It's fine, Scott Lynch. He's had his struggles. He also had that. Did you know this? Like that I think it was last year or maybe 2021 or 2022. There was that whole Twitter thing. I don't know who had basically put out a tweet that they were basically being groomed by Scott Lynch and his wife.
I saw that.
Yeah, that was.
I think it was proven to be wrong.
It was proven to be wrong. Like because the person was over 25, and they're like, you can't use the word grooming when you're a full-blown adult. And he basically had to put out a tweet saying that this is just a private matter. This person is duplicitous as well. And of course, a lot of other people kind of said that. So I would say Scott Lynch, poor guy, has a lot of issues. He's not in the same Martin, or I would say Martin's also not in the Rothfuss camp. Maybe they're seeming the same just because it's taken so much time. Right. Martin, different issue. Pat Rothfuss, totally different issue. And yep, Joe agrees with me. Thank you, Joe. 5 stars.
That's why.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's why I try and just keep putting out updates and keep things like I have in my Twitter name. I just put in the amount of words that I've written in the current book I'm writing, and that way it's completely out there and there's no confusion. And I just think, if these big dudes in the industry did something similar, Brandon Sanderson, just be upfront. If Brandon Sanderson said, guys, something horrible has happened and I'm not going to be able to publish for 5 years because of blank.
Yeah.
No one would care. I mean, they'd care.
Yeah, but
or Sanderson. But he's so transparent and so honest that just I don't understand why there's people that aren't like him. Like, just talk to us, you know?
Yeah, I mean, readers are very forgiving. Like, I'll tell this, like, yes, there are
Right.
bad readers and there's horrible people out there as well, but most readers, fantasy fans, SFF fans, they're very forgiving people. You know, you be honest and just say, like, you know, hey, I have this issue. You know, I'm sorry, I cannot write. It's absolutely okay. Most people, I'm saying most people, I'm not saying all people, because yes, there will be some people who still be disgruntled, who make snarky comments.
Right.
Ignore them. Most of
Yes.
your fans of most authors want them to write. They want their authors to be happy. They want their authors to write more books. They want to buy those books so the author can benefit from them. That's the thing. Yep, John, that is true. I just recently, not recently, I on Fantasy Faction saw a post about
I was
this.
just going to say that.
Yeah, somebody had
Fantasy
posted, like, you know, they,
faction?
yeah, they read first George R. R. Martin, and then they read Pat Rothfuss, and now they're sad. And of course, there's a comment. I was going to comment over there, like, you know, don't be like this. Don't believe this. It's not, you know, ignore them, but read
Right.
other books. You know, you don't want, and that's very true. Like, a lot of authors, and I know there was a lot of chatter on Twitter about this as well, but I genuinely feel some, well, not some, quite a few fans are not starting new series, and then they'll just wait, and then, you know, the books don't get published, and, you know, new authors like yourselves, they get hurt in this.
Yeah, so Fantasy Faction is
It's an
another
excellent
review.
blog. It's another excellent blog, and they have their Facebook page as well. So,
Yeah, it's
John,
a
if you,
huge page.
yeah, if you tweet at me on Twitter, I'll send you the link to that discussion.
So yes, Fantasy Faction is a great place. It's a Facebook group. It's too big to be. It's so big that you get a lot of problems in that group.
I
But
love them.
yeah, there's a lot of readers in that group who will say things like, "I'm never starting an unfinished series again," and it's like, dude, you realize that if no one ever started new series before they were finished, we wouldn't get any series. Like, what are you expecting? I mean, I love binge reading. I like to just binge read a series. But if it's like, you know, a author that I love already, I'll buy their books as they release. And it would not turn me off from starting a new author, because if you don't support that, then they're going nowhere.
Correct. Also, I've been waiting for a series for 16 years now. You know, it's not really well known. There's this series called Godslayer
Is that
Chronicles.
girl, the author,
No,
the female author? Oh, okay.
no, that's Melanie Ron whom you're talking about. That she's been now. It's been 20, maybe not even 20, 30 plus years.
Geez.
No, I'm talking about, there's a favorite author of mine. He's more well known as James Rollins, but he used to write as fantasy series books under James Clement's name. There's a series of his called the Godslayer Chronicles. I love them. I'm not saying everybody loves them. Maybe there's like a small minority of us, but we, like, the small minority, are still waiting. It's been 16 years. I'm not complaining, because the guy is very successful, you know, on the fantasy side. I mean, on the thriller side. So he's been writing books over books. He gets more contracts. It's understandable. It's okay, you know, like, you can wait patiently. I'm not, like, I don't abuse him. I still message him from time to time and, like, hey, how's it going? And is it coming? He's like, yeah, I'm writing. I'm going to publish it. It's okay. Do not stop reading. Like, how do you cannot, just because Rothfuss or Martin, they have burnt you, doesn't mean that the authors will. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Read their books. There's so many wonderful books out there. So many books.
Yeah,
And
it's so frustrating, because I
it
feel
is.
like so many of us are not nearly most often, even the well-known authors, are way less prominent and successful than, the few names that we're mentioning right now. And
Yeah.
they by themselves have, like, just ruined series for a lot of people. And it's like, it's annoying, because, like, but myself, I am trying to publish a book a year until my series finishes. Whether or not that's off by, like half a year or so,
Yeah.
for whatever. No more than 2 years between entries would be the,
How
I would almost say guaranteed plan, but
yeah. How long are you planning? Is it a 5-book series, trilogy, more?
my core series is 4 books. But then I have, like, this year I have the second book coming out, and also a short story anthology.
Yeah.
And then and then I have book 3 that I'm writing right now. And then I have the 4th book that I plan on writing probably next year. But after that, I have 2 standalones planned that are going to kind of, like, bridge the gap between this series and a sequel series. but I don't know if I'm going to go right into that. I've had a lot of interest for a few like other ideas that I've had,
Hmm.
like a grimdark sci-fi Redwall
Oh,
is something that I've considered writing.
yeah,
Um,
that would be cool.
it, I think it would be great because I see a lot of people talking about things like Redwall and
Hmm.
what was the other Watership Down.
Yes.
I've never actually read Watership Down. I probably should.
Also,
Um,
plug out for Daniel Polanski's The Builders for people who like Redwall. If you haven't read Daniel Polanski's The Builders, kind of similar vein, gritty fantasy, and also Daniel Polanski, excellent author.
I've never read that either. But so I've seen a lot of discussion about how it'd be cool for not just like the Redwall type stuff, but a lot
Mhm.
of like things that are geared towards younger audiences. Just
Mhm.
but then written for all like adult audiences. I've seen like I would
There's
love
not a lot of that. There's almost none of that, in
right
fact.
exactly, and it would be kind of interesting. I think a grimdark sci-fi Redwall would be kind
Hey,
of
it would
fun.
be fantastic. Also, you can enter it in SPSFC or Space Bowl, so there's that too.
That's true. I All right, you brought it up, so let's move on to. I think everyone that's here with us knows what SPFBO is, but just real quick for people who don't know what it is, it's a self-published fantasy blog off. It's
Hmm.
run by Mark Lawrence. The
Yes.
basic premise is actually, I think submissions open for is it the ninth of
Yep, the
SPFBO?
ninth edition. The ninth edition of the SPFPO.
May
It's
17th, I think, is when it
correct. May
opens.
17th at 1 p.m. British Standard Time. You can just use any converter to convert it to your time zone. Last year was the quickest ever in the history of SPFPO. The contest, because you can only put in 300 titles. Maybe Mark does a few more just for his
Mhm.
alternates, but 300 titles got filled in 8 hours and about 40-45 minutes. So that was the
Yep.
quickest ever.
I
So
stayed up all night uh, to submit, and when I woke up, because I sleep during like
mhm,
the morning / early afternoon, I stay up all night,
yeah.
and so I stayed up later that day so that I could make sure I could submit in time. And when I woke up, I think I saw a tweet or Facebook comment from Mark Lawrence, and it said something like there was only like 20 spots left. I was like, oh my god,
Oh yeah.
so glad that I just stayed up.
Last year was just crazy because we all had bets. Okay, when we say bets, this sounds horrendous. It's not horrendous. We just take fun bets with no prizes, obviously. About how much time will it take to fill up the 300 titles? Last year, none of us were right because we it just
Right.
wow.
So you are a part of Fantasy Book Critic, as you said earlier in the
Yes,
podcast uh, for SPFBO. Sorry.
yes, yeah,
So it's a group of you, but you
yes,
specifically have been part of Fantasy Book Critic since 2009. You
yeah,
said
yep.
that's that's crazy. I graduated high school in 2007. um, so, uh,
I'm old.
you're right. So how many? Do you know how many years you've
Yeah,
participated?
yeah, all editions. Thankfully, I was
Oh
lucky
wow!
enough to be part of the first SBO, and since then, Fantasy Book Critic has been involved in every SPFBO. All thanks to Mark Lawrence for allowing us the privilege to be part of the team. First few years, the first two editions, I was a solo judge. That was tough. That was really, really, really tough. From the fourth edition onwards, I was like, okay, either I can have somebody with me because otherwise I won't be able to take part in SPFPO, and so I asked Lucas, who was amazing. Then we also had Adam Weller from, at that time, Fantasy Book Review, who joined us. Then we had a couple of other people within the team, David Stewart, Justin Bergman, who, were helping out with the reviews as well. But then since then, so Fantasy Book Critic has been part of SBFPO from the beginning, from SBFPO 1, which was in 2015, to its ninth, iteration, which is going to start, well, literally this month. And we, along with Fantasy Faction and Lynn's Books blogs, are the only three blogs who have been there from the start. So kudos to Fantasy Faction, kudos to Lynn, Lynn Williams of Books and Traveling with Lynn, and yeah, a little known blog called Fantasy Book Critic.
Yeah, that's crazy. that you've been there since the start. That's really cool. Why do you keep returning?
Well,
It
because
seems like a lot of work.
it is, and also because I'm a masochist. No, to be honest, I okay. This is going to sound a little bit of like we are tooting our own horn. We are not. This is verifiably true. So, fantasy book critic. So, as you all know, self-publishing is never was not the same. What it is now, it was not the same 10 years ago. It was not even the same more than 12, 15 years ago. At Fantasy Book Critic, we were on the first few blogs, possibly literally in less than amongst 5 blogs, in the blogosphere back then, would even look at self-published titles. We were one of the first few bloggers to even review Michael J. Sullivan's original Dry Real Evolutions books before they were picked up by, when he was self-publishing them. You can go back and look at our blog. There are reviews from, Liviu and Cindy, or two original reviewers who reviewed his books, and we espoused them. I am still a huge fan of David Dalglish. He's a fantastic Orbits author. He had published his half orc series. I reviewed his Shadowdance books before they, when they're self-published, and of course they got picked up by Orbit, and since then he's been like a hybrid publisher. We also reviewed Anthony Ryan's Blood Song when it was self-published. I almost reviewed James Islington's original The Shadow of What Was Lost book because it was also self-published. So we have been reviewing self-published books before self-publishing books became such a huge thing. And this contest, honestly, it's amazing because the one thing about indie fantasy is that there's always new books coming out. You can never know which new authors coming out and what they're putting out. So when Mark Lawrence came up with this contest, I was like, this sounds really cool and it's fun, and it's a small way to give back to the community. And since then, it has just grown and grown and grown, and it has become more and more awesome. We have had so many wonderful winners, so many wonderful finalists, and also so many titles you got to know of, which might not be finalists, but they're amazing for me. So, all of that. That's why. And also, I'm a masochist, so
Yeah, so just real quick, my own experience with SPFBL, because I submitted as a completely unknown writer. I had published my book June 1st, which is the start date for SPFBO. And so I submitted my book. It did not go anywhere in the competition. It was eliminated, but I got a really good elimination review. So that was really what I was hoping for, honestly. It was just go out, but don't be disappointing. And so I was so happy. Luke Winch is the person that reviewed and cut my book. I'm pretty sure Rob Hayes, the bastard, is the one that took my spot as a semifinalist.
Were you in Before We Go blog? Were you over there?
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. That was a brutal group because there were so many wildly successful books in it. And I saw who was in it, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Rob Hayes is the person that actually helped me submit to that to SPFBO 8. And so it's just ironic that I was in the same grouping as him. And I like to say he eliminated me. I don't actually know if he did, but Luke Winch, he reviewed and cut my book, and he messaged me and said, like, hey, that was like maybe the hardest review I've ever written. And, I thanked him, and it was a great review. And then Rob Hayes is a semifinalist.
Yes.
And I don't know if this is true, but since Rob also tends to write the grimdark, quite like stuff, I think he was the only semifinalist that was in the same sort of a genre as I was. And I was just like, I'm pretty sure you just knocked me out, you bastard.
Well, he was, but the fun fact was his book wasn't grimdark. The book which you're talking about, which was submitted along with your group. Also, kudos to you, because the Before We Go blog group last year was just chock-a-block with amazing titles. They had like a really hard time. I know Beth. I speak to Beth Tabler, the owner, and amazing
Beth
lady behind. She's just lovely, and she's super brilliant as well. I was always reaching out to her just to see what was going on. They had a really hard time. And also his book Spirits of Vengeance, which I think was the book which was competing with you, not grimdark. Like, it has moments of like slight darkness to it, but it was, again, it was offered to us as not just us, it was offered to all of the blogs as a Senlin safety net as well. So We ended up choosing the Umbral Storm, so that was really interesting. Oh, hello, this is really a nice question to ponder about.
Yeah. So, general thoughts on SPFBO having last year a romance winner and this year a slice of life. Is there a trend here forming? For me, I'm not a judge, so I'm going to
Mhm.
put my opinion out there, and then I'll let the judge actually answer it.
The judge.
For me, I think there's two things happening.
Hmm.
The first is that they're really well written books.
Hmm.
The second is that COVID just happened. And when, for some reason, I'm not in this camp, but for some reason, when there's big worldly tragedies or events, people tend not to like to read anything that's darker or more realistic, which baffles my mind because that's all I ever want to read anyway. But I do know that people do kind of shift their reading trends based on what's happening, and I think that might be part of it. But really, I think it would be a little disingenuous to say it's that more so than just these are two apparently really well written books. I haven't read either of them, so I can't really comment. But I'll let the judge now go.
No, not the judge. One of the people who was lucky enough to be judging the contest. I'm going to say shout out to JD Evans. Her book, which basically won SPFPO 7, was amazing. And this year it was, of course, with Olivia Atwater's, Small Miracles. Rain and Ruin was the title for last year's win. I'm actually glad for them because those are both amazing titles. We are on a potential hat trick as well, because JD Evans won in 2021, and Olivia Atwater won in 2022. So maybe next year, if there's another female author who wins, then it'll be like a female author hat trick. But even besides that, I'm gonna say yes, John. To your point, the pandemic maybe did something because this year we had three cozy finalists. Not to shout out to Stephanie Burgess for her title. I keep on forgetting it. Oh dear God, she's gonna hate me for this. I apologize. And then Miss Percy by Quenby Olson, a fantastic book. Don't believe me. Believe Michael R. Fletcher, the grimdark baddie of them all. He loved the book. He loved it so much that he wanted to award it 15 points. We had to tell him, you cannot give it 15. It's a max of 10. He still fought us on that because we were lucky enough to have him as a guest judge this edition. But no, this year was truly fantastic because we had a wide variety of titles, not just the cozy fantasy. Kind of tweak your point, Fantasy Bane. We also had like a historical horror nautical fantasy book. The Song of the Void by Andrew C. Piazza. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing his last name. That was such a strange genre mix of a book. It came second. It got the highest amount of points for being the second, for getting the silver medal, along with Trudy Sky's The 13th Hour. That was again a different type of book as well. So yes, it's actually the epic fantasy scope is expanding, which is a good thing. We are getting different titles. As judges, we judge the book. We don't judge. We didn't think that, oh, this was going to be a cozy finals. No, we chose the best books. And yes, the best book this year, or at least with the amongst all the 10 different judges or 10 different judging groups, turned out to be Small Miracles. But there's so many other different books as well. The second book was nearly nihilistic. It was grimdark. It was everything, and it had a huge amount of what's the term? Lovecraftian horror in it as well, but really well written. So
Yeah, I think especially with the first phase of the competition, I think once you get to the finalists, it's a lot easier to say like, the best book won. It was just judged by 10 reviewers. The first phase is a little. I said a little. I really mean like a gigantic stroke of luck because you're randomly assigned to a group of people. A huge pile of books, 30 books each blog gets. And then each blog, I don't think it's everyone, but most of them seem to have a team. Then the books are divided among the team. Then, they all start reading and this person doesn't like that. So they DNF it. And if you're lucky, they'll say something like, hey, this book is too dark for me, but you might actually like it. So you might run and read it. And then a different judge will read it and you'll, maybe get lucky there. But you could literally just land a blog who isn't feeling a cozy fantasy book that year, or who isn't feeling a grimdark book that year, and then you're just out because they preferred this one, and that it's there is a lot of luck involved. I
Yeah.
had a SPFBO contributor. She was part of a different group that wasn't Before We Go blog.
Mhm.
And my book is one of her favorite books of last year. And so if I had landed that group, who knows? I could have been a finalist. You know,
True.
you don't know, or at least a semifinalist. I think it's a little
Hey,
arrogant to say finalist, but
why not? You could have been. You could have been. That's true. No, that's very true. The luck factor is huge. Um, No, I'll get to Fantasy Bane's point because I want to make a specific. That's an interesting comment, Fantasy Bane. But I'll tell you something because I'm part of the judging Discord group, so we kind of talk a little bit. But no, coming back to what John, you just said. Honestly, luck is the huge factor, and it's unfortunate, but it's on purpose because a while ago, Mark Lawrence and everybody debated like should the judges give their favorite genres, and then he will compile them genre wise and then give only the books to the genres which you like. But the problem was then it would be kind of like pilfering, and it would be kind of like then the judges who like grimdark would get grimdark books, so then you kind of have like this slots of like finalists, like, oh, there's going to be this year there's going to be 7 grimdark groups because there's 7 groups who like
right.
epic fantasy grimdark and stuff like that. So the luck of the draw plays into the randomness of the contest. And I know it sounds horrible. My apologies to everybody because I've there's so many wonderful books that I loved. They got caught and they got cut because it didn't land with the judges. One of the biggest examples that you can think of is Rachel Aaron's Nice Dragons finished last. I don't know if you've read this, Sean. Like it's a wonderful, wonderful comedy, sci-fi, urban fantasy with dragons, and it's one of my beloved books. It got caught because again the same thing happened. It landed in a group. They were known for reviewing urban fantasy, but the judge who reviewed it didn't it didn't strike them, or it didn't catch your fancy. It got cut. Richard Nell's Kings of Paradise, it landed with another judge who unfortunately didn't like it. It got cut. Fair again. I'm not rubbing. I'm not saying that the judge was wrong. No, she was not wrong. It just didn't. It was not her cup of tea, and that's the randomness of the contest. My biggest, I don't know. This is just I'm joking, but I haven't forgiven Fantasy Faction because in the very first SPFPO, James Allington had submitted his book, which was The Shadow of What Was Lost, which was a self-published title back then. I think I have it over here somewhere. I should have removed it. But they had submitted, and of course, it was really hard for them because they had actually Michael McClung's, the thief who stole something that I always forget the title. It was a close tie between that book and James Allington's book, and they chose Michael McClung's book as a finalist. And of course,
The
Michael
thief who
McClung.
pulled on Troll's braids. Is that
Yes,
what it's called?
that one, and that one went through. And to this day, I believe that James Allington's books is better. But again, my opinion doesn't matter because I'm not the judge for that blog. So it's things like this which always happen. Going into Fantasy Bane's point, yes, the female judges, because we all have in many groups. It's like it's the diversity matters. It does not, because most of our female judges dislike romance. That's they'll tell you this upfront. I'm not making this up. They'll tell you upfront. A lot of female, yes, there are some judges who prefer romance. There's some people who don't. I like romance in my books, but so long it's not the central focus of the story. If it's a part of the story, it's good. But there's so many female judges who don't like romance. They'll be like, I don't care for a romantic book. No, they judge them purely by what's well written, and that's what. And J.D. Evans's book, Rain and Ruin, was a well written book. So, sorry, I'm just giving you a viewpoint or small insight. And again, sorry.
I mean, I think that you can look at any identifying feature of someone, and it will play a part in what they like or experience. That's just part of who we are. But I don't think that it it doesn't really matter, I don't think, and B, it's just we all have different backgrounds, and that's going to shape what we like. That's the part of the nature of judging. That's if you submit to a contest and it's an all-female judged contest, and your book is very misogynistic, sure, it affects it. But that's just the nature of the beast, I think.
Yeah, but see, the randomness helps, right? Because you can't predict it. Now, fair play, I'll just mention this. We are known to be lovers, like Fantasy Critic is known to be lovers of slightly darker side of things. Yes, some of our judges do prefer that, but we are open to other books as well. I'm not saying that we'll always book a grimdark or dark fantasy book over something. That's not the case. Last year we booked the Ascendant Safety Net title, which was Umbral Storm, which is not at all a dark book. And the fact that we can't predict what books we are getting makes us excited as well, because we're always curious, like, okay, when's Mark is going to allot
Right.
us the books, when we are going to get a book of, the lot of 30, and then we'll divvy it up. And so it's always exciting, because then you don't know what the judges will select, and that randomness and that uncertainty actually adds the fun to this contest. I would love to hear from maybe Joe or other people who have followed the contest from the viewer perspective. Is, if it's fun for them, the unpredictability. I know it's for us, but I don't want to hear from the reader side as well.
It's so
Or
scary, though. I would say that much. It is very scary. The unpredictability. The whole
Mhm.
time I'm just hoping, please let me get a blog that likes grimdark. Fortunately, I think that I did.
Mhm.
So that was good. But I, it's like it's all luck. That's
Yep,
just
it
the
is true.
beginning is so lucky. But to go back to your point, you mentioned a while ago
Mhm.
that if each blog was known for having preferred like genres, that, well, first of all, you can't predict like what genre is going to be submitted. So if you
Yeah.
get, you know, 200 cozy fantasy entries next year because Legends and Lattes and Miss Percy blew up,
Yeah.
then that would be a little overwhelming for the groups that
Yeah.
and then maybe as a grimdark or dark fantasy fan, you maybe not have much to do that year.
And also, it'll be horrible for Mark to do all this work, because he's a
Right.
busy guy too. He's a fantastic writer. He is busy with his family, and he makes this like, he is truly what makes this context so special, because he invests in it. He is giving the publicity. He talks about it. He gives the selfie stick. He puts the pictures. Mark is a huge driving force. So this contest can stay alive until it doesn't take up too much of his mental space for him. So doing all of that also complicates things on his end as well. And this was an excellent example which you brought up, John. Like, that what if there's 7 grimdark loving blogs and there's 200 cozy fantasy titles? What happens then? That's just a horrible mismatch. Joe, Joe, that's true. I mean, and yes, it is. I wouldn't say it's horrible. I feel like it's the most equitable. I'm sure, Joe, you probably mean well. But yeah, it's like, not to drag on SPFC SFC. They're doing their own thing. Kudos to them. But I feel like
I've heard
SPFC
some bad things about them.
it's confusing. I won't say it's bad, but it's confusing. Like, I was involved in the first SPSFC as a judge as well. It was very confusing, like, even to me, like, how are we selecting titles, and what are we supposed to do and stuff like that. At least with with the SPFPO, it's a little bit simpler. Like, 300 books, 10 blogs, each blog has 30 books, they pick one finalist. It's straightforward, and the
Right.
unpredictability kind of helps. So yeah. But yeah, I totally agree with Joe. Yeah, it's not horrible. It's just the unpredictable, but it's equitable. This way, it's the luck of the draw, and sometimes, yes, luck doesn't play fair, which is why there's the Senlin safety net, which is something to make this a little bit more fair for certain things. Like, when you have a book that one blog gets 2 awesome books, but other blogs don't. So the blog which has 2 awesome books can put forward one as finalist and the one as the same safety net, so the other 9 can consider them and be like, hey, maybe this is a better book than our finalist, or maybe we don't have really any good book to send as a finalist. We can read this and send this forward to the final. So there's that. I'm
So
sorry, Joe.
I've heard behind the scenes that this is very prominent.
Oh.
Uh, I I don't have any first party knowledge of this. I didn't take place in it. I didn't judge it.
Hmm.
I have heard that the way judging is happening in that contest does not make any sense. I don't know. I guess just the format is kind of a mess. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to it because I
It's
truthfully don't care. That might be the wrong word. It's just I I'm a fantasy author. I don't write science fiction at the moment, and already have too much of a TBR to really
Mhm.
want to pick up more books at the moment. So I kind of haven't paid attention to it, but I've just heard from other. I don't want to name anybody, but just
Sure.
a few judges from behind the scenes that said like, the way that finalists or semifinalists and finalists are picked is like unfair because a lot of people really didn't like some of the picks.
Oh,
The way that they're assigned books, they have to read way more than
oh
they
yeah, yeah.
thought.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's very true. Joe, maybe I'll bug you about it later. I want to know because, but yeah, that's very true, John. What you said because there's like this time, and they've broken down into like there's like assigned reading. Like after you go through your initial lot, there's like 50 or 60 odds. No, wait, I'm quarterfinalists, and then there's 30 odd semifinalists, and then
Right.
from those 30 semifinalists, you get 7 finalists. Again, it's early days. I don't want to, not to disparage SPSFC. The Duncan Swan and Hugh Harvey, the people who are behind it, they're doing a lot of hard work. Maybe because this is only the second edition, which is still ongoing. The finals are still ongoing, so maybe they'll simplify the process. Maybe they'll make it less complicated, or maybe uncomplicated. So that'll be helpful. But yeah, it is.
I know a couple that are like, I'm not going back if they don't change the format. Just like I don't know why they didn't just adapt the same format that
I
SPFBO uses because
That would have been easier. That would have been nicer. That would have been simpler. Again, I don't know. I was just involved in the first year running, but I was a minor. I was in a group. I was just trying to read as much as I can. Hat tip to Ariana, who's part of Queen's Asylum blog, who basically was our shepherd and was kind of pushing us through. So, yeah, it was a bit tricky as well. So I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, because it's so much early days, they can simplify things in the future and make it a little bit, because indie science fiction also needs something like this, because indie fantasy is booming. Not just because of SPFPO, but it's booming on it as a general rule. So why should science fiction be left behind?
I agree. And there's I think that before this existed, there was well, I don't actually know. I don't have any facts on this, so you can probably confirm or deny, but I would assume that before the sci-fi version started, the SPFBO maybe got more like sci-fi entries kind of trying to be pushed in there and hope that it
Um,
could be considered.
well, we did have a few, but the one thing which Mark Lawrence, if you look at the rules, he has made something really clear.
Right.
Your book has to be fantasy, or at least even if you think it's fantasy, it has to be considered by fantasy by the judge. If they don't consider it fantasy, it's out. Your book is not going to.
Right.
You'll be able to submit it. Like there's like, but it won't go or do anything more besides that. Everybody, if somebody has been following SPFPO, they know there's the combat codes by Alexander Darwin. It was a SPFPO finalist. We had selected it. We felt that it was a very low fantasy. It kind of straddled the line. There was very few tiny fantasy elements, and it almost seemed like a sci-fi book, but it was like a mix. It didn't quite do as much as well, but we still felt that this was the best book to book forward, which is why we put it forward, because that's what the ethos of the competition is. You put the best book forward, and we, amongst ourselves, when we talked, we felt like, hey, this has a little bit of fantasy. It's not outright fantasy, but there's a little bit of fantastical elements as well. But yeah, in the past, there were some books which had mild sci-fi elements as well. But since the competition, since the SPSFC has come up, there's a proper outlet for science fiction books to be submitted over there. They just need someone like Mark Lawrence. That's the thing. Maybe I'm really hoping those authors, the people who are shepherding it, speak to Mark, get his insight and make SPSFC a huge success as much as SPFPO is.
Again, this isn't my words. I've just heard it,
Yeah.
but I've heard some complaints about how is it just Hugh Howey that runs it? Like,
no, Duncan Swan. I believe Duncan Swan's another author who's involved in it.
I've just heard some complaints about. I haven't heard the other name, but with Hugh Howey not like being involved or promoting it as much. Again, I haven't followed this, so I have no stake in this. I have no opinion. It's just what people have told me, and so maybe that's part of it because Mark Lawrence is very involved.
Yes, he is, which is,
I think, helps a lot.
It's a huge driving force. Like Mark, SPFPO is successful because of Mark, the authors who put their books forward, and the judges who review the books. It's like it's all three of them, but Mark is a huge entity behind all of it. Kudos to him.
Yeah, Mark is a great dude.
Yeah, and see, there we go, Joe. That's true.
I think Debunked was also a entry in SPFBO.
Yes,
I think
by
and it was
Ditto.
caught, and they said, "Yo,
Ditto Abbott.
enter SPF, whatever it is,
SPS. Spaceball. Just call
SPFC,
it
whatever."
Spaceball. Spaceball.
All right, question for me here: favorite winner or top
Oh.
three?
All right. Well, John, would you want to go for this one first?
Me?
Yeah.
I have a confession to make.
Okay.
There's not many self-published books in general that I've read. I know that I'm a self-published author.
Mm-hmm.
I have read some self-published fantasy,
Yeah.
but I kind of new to a lot of it.
Okay.
I didn't really know about self-published books. I knew about them,
Yeah.
but not really well
Okay.
until I started writing my book.
Okay.
And even then I think it was more when I was like editing it, when I really got into learning more about it. And so finalists, I don't have many. I did read Rob Hayes's I can't remember the name of it, but the pirate one.
Where Loyalties Lie. Yeah.
Yes, Where Loyalties Lie. And I read the sequel because
it's awesome.
I haven't read anything else by Rob Hayes, but when I was entering SPFBO, I got the sense that Rob Hayes is kind of a similar writer to me from like excerpts that I've seen. And so I wanted to read his finalist and see how it like kind of rated against my own writing. So I read that. And so by default, I think that would be my favorite because it's the only one I've read, I think, that was a winner.
Okay.
Actually, it's the only one that I know I've read that's a winner. For finalists, I don't think I've read any. No, that's not true. I read
No World's Got Grown?
that orc.
Oh yeah,
orc book.
Grey Bastards.
Yeah, so I read that before I knew anything about any of this stuff, and I think at that point it had been picked up already by a publisher.
Yes.
I just randomly bought that book in a store. Actually, this is a really fun story. Before Grey Bastards, I had read and loved Jonathan French's first two books.
Oh, his Epic Fantasy
which
trilogy.
are incredibly underrated, in my opinion. I think they're spectacular. I can never remember the name of the first book, but the second one is The Errantry of Bantam Flynn. And I didn't know those were self-published until I started researching SPFBO, and I saw that Jonathan French's Grey Bastards was entered, and I was like, wait, what? And I looked him up, and I found out that all those books were self-published. I was like, what the hell?
I think the first book is called Exile's Heir. The
Yes,
second one, like you mentioned,
yes.
Errantry of Bantam Flynn, and then there's a third book which I can't see it, but maybe...
hasn't come out yet. I don't
think.
It
hasn't come out. Oh, okay.
Because what happened, I believe, I don't know the exact story, but he wrote those two. Yeah, and I do believe that it's supposed to be part of a series. I don't know. You said trilogy. I don't know if it's longer or shorter. I don't know. Yeah. But then he wrote Grey Bastards. I'm guessing he wrote it because SPFBO maybe trying to.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, no. He just wrote it because that story came in his mind, and it was supposed to be a standalone. Like it was. He didn't write it for SPFPO because this was just the second year when SPFPO was when he just casually entered it. But he just wrote it. There's a really fun story behind it. I'll let you finish, and I'll tell a little bit about that.
Well, I was just going to say that it seemed odd that he just moved to that, I guess, instead of continuing with this other series. But Grey Bastards really blew up, and then I think he got picked up. And if you get picked up, I think that probably is prioritized over the series that you might have been working on before, because.
And like you mentioned, it's underappreciated. Like it probably didn't have that many sales. Grey Bastards was huge.
Yeah, it's too bad because hot take. I actually like the other series more.
That's fair.
Grey Bastards was pretty good, and the sequel was pretty good.
Yeah,
The
third book is out.
Yeah, I know. I don't know that I ever bought and read it, and if I did, I don't remember if I did. That's something I guess I'd have to check. I
Okay.
don't know that I read the third book.
Well, if you did, you
I
probably
should.
would remember it. Yeah, it focuses on the thrice orc, or I'm forgetting the name as well. But I think oats. Oats. It focuses on oats, if I'm not wrong.
I don't remember. I know I read at least the first two, but I don't know. It was pretty good, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I like the other series more personally.
Yeah,
It's still good though. Grey Bastard's still good.
yeah, it's a fair question. All right. Well, Fantasy Bane, thank you for asking this question. I'll go with top three from just the winners of the previous 8 SVFP editions. My three top choices are Sword of Kaigan by ML Wong. Loved it. Where Loyalties Lie by Rob J. Hayes. I love the whole that book. The sequel is even more fantastic. The Fifth Empire of Man and the whole series, the first saga, is one of my all-time favorite series. And Orconomics by J. Zachary Pike. It is brilliant. It is brilliant. Joe, if you're still listening, if you haven't read it, you should really give it a try. It is, it is a fun take on Dungeons and Dragons, epic fantasy, and it's a satire on American capitalism, all rolled into one. It is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. It doesn't get as much love as it should, but it really needs to. But yeah, those are my top three finalists or top three winners. Like my favorites from the previous 8 editions. No, nothing against the other 5. They're equally good. I just like if I had to pick a top 3, I'll just go with these 3.
Right. Yeah. That's I've heard a lot about
Oh
Orconomics
yay!
for sure.
Awesome,
Uh,
Joe.
so I might pick that one up at some point as well. I
You should.
hear
You should.
so many good things about ML Wong's book, but I just don't know if I'd be able to get through it. There's I For me, I have this thing where if I'm reading a book, a fantasy, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I have this block where like I need my names and places and stuff to be uh, digestible and easily pronounceable and something
Mm-hmm.
I can like. And if it's something that I struggle with, and this
Mm-hmm.
tends to be the case with a lot of like Asian inspired fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
it's just I have a hard time getting through it because I get so hung up on these things. So I do tend to skip a lot of Asian fantasy. I know that's kind of a shame. But it's just I just have this thing where it's like I can't. Oh Jesus! I don't even want to talk about the.
The R.S. Salvatore Ice.
Listen, if you're a kid, these books are fine. I don't understand why so many people that are my age like them so much.
Mhm.
They're fine. They're good. Like when I was a kid, I read them and I really liked them until I realized like how not predictable, but just like
By the numbers.
yeah, it's just I like there was never that much that like I don't know. It's very predictable, very normal, very safe. You don't have to worry about anyone dying really. I mean,
Joe is on fire
listen,
today. Joe's on fire today.
um listen, if you like them, I would never disparage that. I
Mhm.
think that everyone likes their own thing, and I
Yeah.
have no problems with that. I have a lot of books I don't like for stupid reasons or valid reasons. I think it depends on the book. Uh, just, for me, the normal, traditional type fantasy, classic fantasy, I just, I don't know. It's just not for me. I'll shade another book series real quick, but when I was a kid, I read Aragon
Mhm.
and I could not stand it. But I heard so many good things about the next book that I bought Eldest, and I
Mhm.
was 17 or 18 at this point, maybe 19. I don't remember. I was young.
Mhm.
And I read Eldest, and I thought that the book was so much better than Aragon. And then everything I kept thinking and predicting that was going to happen kept happening, to the point where when I actually finished the book, I was laughing out loud, and I was like so disappointed, because I was like, this one to me read so much better than the first one, but it was still so predictable that I ended up laughing at the end. And so I stopped reading that series.
Well, I'm going to give a small plug for Sword of Kaigen. The one good thing is that the majority of the action, or is everything set on a small island. It never leaves that island. There's a supposed invasion, and yes, there's a part of the book which kind of takes in the past, and there's for which they, the main one of the main characters reminisces about her past. It's in a different place, so it's maybe two places, but you can give it I would still say give it a shot. It's a standalone, again, one and done, so that's a good thing if you want that. If you haven't read, I know Tori talks, she also loves them, the Mortal Techniques series by Rob J. Hayes. They're kind of like Asian sword and sorcery. They're amazing. I'm not a publicist for Rob J. Hayes. I know just like a lot of his books, but they're really good. Like, it's not just me. I'm not the only person shouting in the wind. There's a lot of people who love those Mortal Techniques books. And John, if you want to ever try something, Asian sword and sorcery fantasy with thankfully not a lot of names, you can give those a try.
Okay, I might. I mean, Rob Hayes is a great dude as well, and he's a good writer from what I've seen, and I really like Rob. So I might end up trying it at some point. I always have this block. I just have this like knee jerk reaction when someone says Asian inspired fantasy. I'm like, no. And it's not because I have any problem with Asians. It's not that.
How dare you, sir?
Right, exactly. It's just like, I know in my head what it's going to be a lot of the time. And it's like between the names that's a big part of it. And then Western, Eastern.
Joe.
No, this is, well, you caught me. No, just kidding. But Eastern, the focus on Eastern, like spiritual culture and that stuff has just never like clicked with me, I guess. Okay. No shade to anyone. It's just never been like my thing. So between that and then the names, and a lot of Asian inspired fantasy does tend to lean towards a lot of that like spiritual type stuff, which that's great because that's part of the culture. And I think in books in general, more representation is always great. Yep. It just doesn't mean that it's always for everyone, obviously. So that's always like my block. I'm not like,
good night.
Thank you for showing up.
Thank you for your time. Great questions.
I'll just highlight what we were laughing at earlier. It's okay. I appreciate that, at least. No, I just, I think we all have our preferences, and you can like and dislike things without liking or disliking the people because of them.
John, I have discovered a new thing that I can do to you on Twitter. I'm going to keep recommending Asian-inspired fantasy to you, just every once in a while. Like series and books that I have in my mind. I'm going to be like, with pictures, I'm just going to keep on recommending to you, just for fun. Even if you don't.
Okay, that's fine. So there's that one book that everyone keeps recommending that sounds like it would be right up my alley. And I know you're a big fan of it.
Oh, which one?
I just have that same knee-jerk blockage reaction. And Sons of Darkness, I think it's called.
Oh, yeah, Gaurav Mohanty.
Yeah.
I can safely say I am biased, so please don't take my word. When it comes to Sons of Darkness and Gaurav Mohanty, I'm hugely biased, and I'll explain why as well. Oh, jeez. Hey, Joe, hit me up. Or actually, you know what? I'm going to message you. I'm going to DM you after this, after we end this, because I want to know more about that. So thank you for mentioning that. the reason why I'm so biased for Gaurav Mohanty's book is I'm a huge fan of the Indian epic of Mahabharata. It is the world's longest epic. It is a complex tale. It is mind-bogglingly complex. It has everything from heroes, villains, great characters, to situations, to moral scenarios. Everything. It has all of that with fantasy, sci-fi, different races, all of that. And imagine if you're waiting for somebody to write a story about that. You've been waiting your whole life. I'm 40 now. This book came out last year. I've been waiting close to like since I started reading, like about when I first got introduced to the Mahabharata when I was like 5 or 7 years old. So imagine if I'm waiting for this for 30 plus years, and then somebody writes that one book which you've been waiting for 30 years. How can I remain biased? But no, to be honest, it is if you like grimdark, if you like epic fantasy,
Right.
and if you haven't heard of the Mahabharata, that's even better because then you can get to discover what it is. It is an epic fusion of these three elements. And what Gaurav has done is that he's made it unpredictable because he's not just straight up, told the story like it is in Mahabharata. No, he's borrowed the characters from the epic of Mahabharata. He's put them in a land, in a fantasy world, which is Indic inspired, meaning that, from the land of India or the Indian subcontinent. And then he's added elements which he's inspired by, like, say, things like, Joe Abercrombie, George R. R. Martin, Tolkien, Mao San, for some reason. I'm kidding.
Why?
But he's done that. And it is a fantastic mix, so as to speak. And it blew my mind. It is my favorite debut from last year. He's getting published in July this year by head of Zeus Books. I think Ad Astra, maybe, I think. But yeah, so give it a shot. John, I'm not going to say that you will love it. That That's the reason why I love it. Maybe you like
Right.
it. Maybe you'll be like, Mihir's out of his mind. This book is not for me. That's okay. But it is, at least if you're a Grimdark fan, I will say, forget the South Asian inspired part. If you're a Grimdark fan, it might be of interest to you. But again, no rush. You can, because I know
Grimdark
everyone's
is
TBR.
my jam.
Everyone's TBR is always, exploding. I know Joe mentioned that just a while ago that his TBR is insane. So yeah, I can completely understand that. But if you wish for that reason, go ahead, check it out. For everybody else listening, if you don't know about the Mahabharata or Mahabharata, if you're interested in it, Gaurav Mohanty's book is wonderful. You can check out, don't just take my word, take Patrick's word. Patrick Lee of Novel Notions and famous YouTuber. He loved it. Philip Chase, he loved it. Johanna Reeds of YouTube, she loved it. So there's a lot more people who are not South Asian, but still loved it. So just trying to remove the bias part of it. But yeah, I have a tiny bit of bias, because the Mahabharata, it's my favorite story in the world. Like, imagine if you had the one story that you
Right.
loved and somebody wrote a book which is really well written and taken the elements and put them in a nice way. So that's
Yeah,
why.
I mean, here I have a similar experience, except it's Star Wars, and that did not end very well.
Sorry. Yes. That's fair. That's fair. See, but it did not end well. That's why. So so far,
Right.
what Gaurav has done has blown my mind away. But it's early days. I think it's a series of supposedly 5 or 6 books. So maybe I'll just be disappointed at the end, just like you. But I don't know. I'm going to give him a shot. So
Right. And I really should at least try it at some point. I was talking for a while behind the scenes with Shazzy from Fantasy Book Critic, and she told me I should read that Indian text that I will not try and pronounce.
Oh, Desi Trinity. Yeah. Desi Trinity. Yeah. It's Gaurav Mohanty's Sons of Darkness, Aparna Verma's The Phoenix King, and Kritika H. Rao's The Surviving Sky. I'm actually about more than 70% done with Kritika H. Rao's Surviving Sky. It's not grimdark. It's epic fantasy, again, with sci-fi-ish elements and kind of set on like a almost going to an apocalypse type of a world. So it's very interesting. Plus, Shazzy is a book pusher. She reads so much that she even puts me to shame, and then she will harangue you until you finish. She's awesome, though.
So right now it is May 6th. So you have until June 1st, and then you're busy again?
Yes, but I will. The SPFPO will of course take up a huge chunk of time. But that's the beauty. What we do is, as in Fantasy Book Critic, we divvy up the 30 books into, like, because there's going to be 5 judges. I'm waiting
Okay.
to, I reveal a little bit that Esme is going to join us, but there's one more new person, and there's Lucas and one more new person. Well, not new, but one more old person coming back. So we are going to have a team. So we'll just be divvying up the books into 6 batches for all of us. And then so I don't have really that much to worry about. It's just batch of 6, nominate a semifinalist. If there is one worthy title, then read all the semifinalists, and then we put in our finalists. So but I'm always going to make space for the books that are coming out. Like, I'm already I have read Aparna Verma's book when it was self-published. I'm going to reread it again. There's Combat Codes by our lovely Alexander Darwin, which is being published next month. So I'm kind of rereading that for my review.
Oh, that comes out next month. When's that?
It's June 13th, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
I'm reading this one, Mark Lawrence's The Book That Wouldn't Burn. I'm not done with it, but I know it's coming out soon. Oh, and then R.J. Barker's Gods of the Weird Wood. So this one I was hugely anticipating it. So I'm still reading that. So I'm gonna mix stuff up, and then of course there's gonna be other new books by authors that I love, which are gonna be released, and then I'm just gonna be jumping all over it.
Yep, I have a book coming out June 1st. So
that's cool.
Yep. Actually, I have a copy of it right here. I'm not trying to self-plug, but I do want to see how it looks.
It looks awesome, camera. Man. Yeah.
Oops, wrong way, this way. So it looks okay. I have a problem. So this is the back, and the back is really dark. It should not be, but I got the designer to fix the file, and I will have the improved book next Tuesday, I think, is when I'll get it in the mail.
Nice.
So, or maybe Monday. I don't know. So I will be uploading new images of that, because when you compare the two, I have both my books here because I'm a writer and I need to be able to access it. You can kind of see
that
this one
is lighter.
You can see the details. And then this one, you wouldn't even know it.
No.
But there's actually a person right there floating.
No, you don't see that. It just seems like a dark thundercloud. It's like
it's black. Yep. So the designer, I didn't notice this when he sent me the proofs, but he darkened it so that you could read the text, which I understand.
Yep.
But I did pay $2,000 for this artwork.
Oh, geez.
So
wow.
I want it to be seen.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, can we fix this? And he was like, yes. But I got to say, that barcode is the coolest thing ever.
Oh yeah, with the ship on it. Yeah. I haven't seen that with any of the other books at all.
That is really cool. And then he added this circle, just image on the spine, which is really cool. Which I'm going to have him do for my first book, so that it's like uniform.
Matthew has mentioned this, like he beta read for you, right, for this book, and he's been very gung ho about it. Matthew Higgins.
Yeah, he. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. I think that it'll be even better when I get the fixed version. But yes, Matthew, he beta read it, caught quite a few issues, which I'm super excited about.
He's a smart guy.
So I was glad to have him do that. And I was really nervous about this book, man. Not to turn this around on my stuff, but since we're talking about it, I switched editors from my old editor to Sarah Chorn. Now, I know that Sarah Chorn is a very beloved person in the community, an author that people really like, an editor that everyone loves. But no shade on Sarah. It's just that I was worried because I had my first book. I had a very expensive editor who had like all the college degrees and spent ridiculous time on it. So I understand why she was so expensive. Fixed an enormous amount of problems. Switched to Sarah. Again, lovely person, amazing editor. Now I know firsthand that she's an amazing editor, but I was just nervous that switching the editors would, not because Sarah's a lesser editor, but just because it was a different editor, maybe lower or change, not lower because that implies she's a worse editor, but just change what because everybody focuses on different stuff as their profession, right? So my last editor really specialized in developmental editing, I think, and then
Mhm.
and Sarah doesn't really do much developmental editing,
Mhm.
and but I learned so much from the developmental editing that I think I'm good now. But switching editors, I was so paranoid that like it was just going to be so different that people didn't like it, and so I was grateful that Matthew was able to read it and do give me some notes on some things, but mostly I was just uh, like, I need someone to read this and just make sure that it's not crap. And I was very happy that he did that because it was on kind of a
Turn around.
turnaround. I think I was like, dude, if you could have this done in like a month, that would be amazing. And that's like, that sounds like a lot of time, but when you just go up to some
No.
random person who is known for like reviewing, they have these massive lists of to be read. They have these massive schedules, and so I was very appreciative that he was able to do that for me.
He's amazing. Like, Matthew Higgins, Hobbit Hole books for everybody watching. He loves chunky books, so I'm always amazed at him. Like he's able to read through them, and he's able to. So I'm glad he worked. But yeah, he's been mentioning that that he read it and he had a lot of good things to say about your book. I need to finish your first book. That's what I need to do because then I can jump on this one. But I will. I promise I will. And I'm not just
I,
saying that because I'm over here.
you don't have to read it at all. I appreciate anyone who does, but I would never
Well, I'm
want
gonna
to
I'm
make
gonna
it
buy
like
this.
an
I'm gonna buy
obligation.
this when it releases on Kindle because I always prefer that because that way if I have it on my Kindle, then it just becomes easier for me because then I can sneak in a few things. That's what I do like at night when I'm sleeping or when I'm tired. I'm like, let me just read something for a little bit, and then that kind of helps. So I always read multiple books, so then I can fit it in. So
Right.
that'll be
Yeah,
helpful.
I used to read multiple books, but I have since not followed that trend. When I was a kid, I would read like 4 books at a time easy. And
Hmm.
now I'm like, I just got to focus on one. And I think it's just, I'm busy.
Yeah.
I write, so I don't read as much as like you do.
Well, I have a question about that as well. Are you because I know a lot of authors they find it really hard to switch off their writer brain when they're reading other books. Does that the same thing happen to you as well?
Hmm. Yes, I think I don't. So when I was younger and I read, I didn't notice the specific issues with writing, I don't think, but I
Hmm.
did recognize something about this isn't like
Yeah.
working, but I didn't know what it was. Now
Yeah.
that I write and I know a lot more like the techniques, I've done a lot of the research into things like, I don't know, passive voice for example.
Yeah.
Uh, Now I notice it a lot in
Hmm.
like books. So I know you don't like not to bring this into the light.
No,
I
please.
know I know that you don't like Robin Hobb.
Okay, I'll clarify that. But yeah, not a fan of hers. Oh, but not,
I
let me clarify. I'm not a fan of her Fitz books. I like her as a
Oh, okay.
person. Yeah. When I
Oh,
said I'm
she's a
not a
great
fan of her.
person, from what I
Yeah.
know. I read the Farseer trilogy and the Live Ship trilogy
Hmm.
so far, and it's just funny how many traditionally published writers uh, break what a lot of self-published writers would consider rules that you shouldn't break as often as a lot of traditionally published authors do.
Hmm.
And so I noticed that a lot, and it's just I find it funny because it's like, why are we so worried about all these rules? Obviously, the most
Hmm.
famous people, the richest, most successful people don't give a damn.
Yep.
Why are we so uh worried about it now? Because like I think I noticed that I was judging self-published books more like harshly
Hmm.
because I was looking at it from a writer's brain where I was like, dude, your dialogue tags are terrible. And then I would read a traditionally published book and their dialogue tags are awful. But then I just forgave it almost because I was like, well, obviously they're super successful. So I, I must just be the idiot here. I don't know. So I actually did a video on this YouTube channel a little while ago about like, are we judging self-published books
Yeah.
unfairly,
Hmm.
because I've noticed that even I was doing it and I didn't even realize it until I thought about it. And I was like, oh my God, like there is some bias here.
Hmm.
And so, yes, to answer your question, I definitely notice things from like a writer's perspective. But it doesn't, I, I've seen some authors say that like it affects their enjoyment of
Yeah.
reading. And I don't feel the same way.
Hmm.
As long as I'm enjoying the book, the writing issues don't really matter most of the time. If there's like grammatical problems, that's a whole different
Yeah.
like
That's a whole different thing.
right.
That's
But
just
yeah,
not
if they're just
edited.
overusing a technique, like it doesn't really bother me most of the time, unless it's like painfully executed. But you know,
Yeah. I know Joe is mentioning the same thing, like that he's saying that it made him enjoy reading a lot less because I have find the flaws brain. So I know Michael Fletcher has the same problem. I know quite a few authors. Jim Butcher has mentioned this as well. But yeah, that's really hard for you folks who write, because then you it's hard to turn a brain on. Um, for me, Robin Hobb, like you mentioned, like I'm not a fan of Robin Hobb, just because like for me those first two books in the Farseer trilogy like fits, it didn't work, and I read two books and I'm like, okay, this is not for me. So no shade against two people who love her, because I know there's a lot of people who love her. Um, it just didn't work for me. So yeah, Robin Hobb, it's like I can happily just pass pass her books, because there's again so many other authors to read. So I'm hoping.
that's very true.
Yeah.
I I have I mean I really enjoyed the first trilogy, which apparently you did not.
Hmm.
I hated. I didn't hate. I gave it 4 stars. I was just very disappointed by the third book
Hmm.
for many reasons, but it was still a really good read for me. But then the live ship series, individually, I think I rated the books 5 stars, 5 stars, 4 stars,
Hmm.
and now I'm like thinking back on it, and I'm just like, I mean, I like the idea, and Live Ships is considered to be by a lot of people the best series. And
Hmm.
I was so disappointed by the last book that it almost like ruined the other two books for me, because the characters and the story was really good. But imagine a villain like Joffrey Baratheon.
Yeah.
There's actually two of them that are really bad. Two
Hmm.
villains, really bad.
Hmm.
I don't want to spoil for anyone watching, uh, but I'm going to briefly mention in very vague terms the end of what happens with these villains. Shouldn't spoil anyone who wants to read it too badly, but if you don't like any spoilers, tune out or skip ahead like 10 seconds. But the villains get a very, very unsatisfactory ending. So there's not any
Oh.
resolution that really like, it just feels like you read 1800 to 2000 pages of like, I fucking hate this person and I can't wait for them to get what's theirs.
Hmm.
And then like it's so underwhelming what happens. And you're just like, I just read all of this and this is how it ends. Are you kidding? Like, oh my God.
Okay, now
So I made it.
I'm even more happy that I didn't continue with her books then, because I would hate that. I would
it
really, really, really hate that.
it's like the equivalent of your, because I don't want to spoil the books, but so it's like the equivalent of, you know, Joffrey Baratheon
Hmm.
makes it to the end of Game of Thrones. He doesn't
Hmm.
die in book 3, makes it to the end. And then this whole book series, you have these characters inner monologuing about how horrible this person is, how
Hmm.
terrible things are, what they're going to do when they see them. They're going to fuck this person up because they hate them, and it's just, and it's revenge. And then you get to the end and they're standing there looking at the enemy and they're like, oh, here we go. And then the guy, and then Joffrey is, trips and breaks the neck and doesn't get
Oh,
his upcomings. Like,
oh dear God,
or
that is bad.
comeuppance. Like, it's not that bad, but
Yeah,
it's very, very
similar.
disappointing in a very similar way, where like the characters with agency that you want to like walk up to them, you want them to say like, I hate you, and this
Yeah.
is die and then drive the dagger into them and make them feel that pain. You
Yeah.
know, that doesn't happen and you don't get that satisfaction. And so in my own writing, I've really made it a point to like, I think that if you implement it correctly,
Mhm.
an unsatisfied or a dissatisfied resolution is actually really cool and effective. It usurps expectations, but
Mhm.
when it's the only form of resolution,
Oh,
that's
that's
not good.
readers will hate you. Readers will hate you for that.
But apparently not, because Live Ships is apparently like everyone loves it. And I'm like, why? It ends so like badly. Like I'm
Well,
so frustrated by the lack of just good resolution with the characters that like I didn't keep reading. That's I moved on. I started rereading the
oh,
Night
Brent
Angel
Weeks.
trilogies
Mhm.
because this book came out,
Yep, Nightingale
um,
Nemesis.
which I haven't read this book in so long since this edition, the omnibus.
Mhm.
Let me see. I think it came out in 2009.
Or 12?
No, 2012.
Oh, I was right. Yeah, 2012.
2012 for this. And that's when I read it. I bought this as like in the bookstore randomly. And I loved it back then. I have a lot of people nowadays that I see think it's really bad and juvenile. And I don't know if you've read or how you feel about the series.
I
I
I'm
personally liked it.
I'm trying to be very polite over here.
I don't care if you're polite. Shoot your shot.
I am not a Brent Weeks fan. My
We
our
have words,
yes,
and
we
I will agree with you in a minute on something, but keep going.
oh yeah. My co-blogger Liviu loves and has reviewed Brent Weeks' Night Angel trilogy on Fantasy Book Critic. I unfortunately could not get into Night Angel, and then he has written a different series, which I'm forgetting something about
Oh,
Light
Lightbringer.
Knight. Yeah, Lightbringer. Thank you. I read a few chapters of the first book, and I was like, okay, Brent Weeks is not for me at all. Period. So I am a complete no go on Brent Weeks. So I'm actually the last person who should talk about Brent Weeks. So I'm just going to shut up. But yeah,
Okay, so like I said,
he's a
I was a
charming
big
person.
fan.
Again, I'll just say this: he's a charming person. His
Yes,
fans love him.
he seems
Nothing
like a
against
good
him.
person.
I not for me. Not for me.
So I am pretty far into it
Hmm.
enough to know that I'm a fan of the series. I really enjoyed it so far. Lightbringer.
Hmm.
Lightbringer is the first time I ever wrote a scathing review. It's
Hmm.
actually the only time I've written a scathing review. It was before I was writing. Uh, it was a while ago. Um, so I really enjoyed the first three books
Hmm.
personally, and then books 4 and 5 I thought were abominations.
Is it because of the Dio Ex Machina?
Yeah, it was so stupid. I
Yep.
almost like
I found out about that from a friend who reviewed it and who read it, and he was like, he also gave up. I was like, oh wow, this
there
is taking
was
things to a whole different level.
there were so many people that like that series, and I'm like, am I the only person here that thinks this is absolute trash? Like I don't mean to be offensive to Brent Weeks. I again like most of his books. What the fuck was that ending? The
Not for
whole
us.
last book of Lightbringer was just like, what are you doing? It was just like everything was solved by like the most ridiculous things in the world. I was so like, what? And again, I haven't read Night Angel since it
I
came
have a
out in
theory.
this edition, so I don't really remember how it ends. But
I have a theory. So maybe you're right. Maybe the last book was so bad that maybe they didn't do so well. So which is why he's coming back to his popular series of Night Angel.
I don't know.
Hey,
I
that's my
see.
theory.
It's hard to say that though because with traditional authors, it seems like they're so far ahead of the books that are actually coming out that maybe that's true. It's possible. I don't know. Maybe he always intended to go back. I don't know, because I mean, I would love to be traditionally published. I'm not going to lie. That's my like end goal, would be to land an agent and get published. Whether those aspirations are too high or not, I don't know.
Hey, that's a
But
good thing to aspire to.
fair enough. But the only thing I hate about it is like, man, you have to wait so long for things like after you write a book. It's insane how much later like the process takes. Self-publishing, I write the book, I hire someone to edit it, I do the editing, I hire someone to do the other odds and ends that you need to do, and then I can put it out there.
Yep.
Like Buzzard's Bowl was written last year, it's coming out this year. If I was traditionally published, it probably wouldn't even come out until next year.
No, at least 2 to 3 years later. At least 2 to 3 years later, if there was nothing again like COVID all over again. So,
right, and it's just crazy to me that it takes so long. And I see a lot of traditionally published authors talking about how they're. Well, you mentioned him earlier, R.R. Verdi, I think
yep,
is his
R.R.
name.
Verdi. Yep.
I don't follow him on Twitter, but I see his posts every once in a while. And there was one that he mentioned his sequel, and how it was he was hoping it would come out, I think this year, but I think he said. I thought he said something about there might be a possibility it might not come out till next year because of paper shortages or something. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I know there's been paper shortages, but like publishing on demand, we're not getting any problems. There was a problem during a year or two ago, I think, where it was like really slow to get things through Ingram Spark and stuff. But even then, it wasn't like a year later. That's crazy.
I don't think that might be the case. He's also with Tor, the biggest North American publisher, at least of fantasy.
Right.
So I think
that's
it'll be
fair.
okay. At least I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I think his sequel, the second book, The Tales of Tremaine, there's a title release. I'm forgetting the title. It's released on a couple of sites and even on Amazon, but I'm hoping it comes out in October. But yeah,
I'm pretty sure this was R.R. Verdi, by the way. It might have been someone else, and if it wasn't him, I do apologize. But I thought it was him.
Well, could be. He's very active on Twitter. He's a very nice person as well. Lovely person. I got to meet him thanks to Dirk Ashton last year at DragonCon. So
I want to go to that so badly.
You should come. You should really come. It is fantastic. Again, Dirk Ashton. Thanks to Dirk Ashton, I've been to DragonCon twice. Was there the whole time last year. Going again this year. So it's going to be super fun. So if you
that's in where, Atlanta?
Yep, Atlanta during Labor Day. So it is very well worth it, I would say.
It's just I just don't. It's probably such a huge financial investment to go, and as a very small fish, it's almost like, is it worth it? I don't know.
You can go as a fan. Honestly, you can just go as a fan because it is. And I'm saying this just because I got to meet like all these authors over there, so you can just get to hang out with them and that get to develop more relationships. But again, I'll bug you more about this later. So you can it's always going to happen. Keep on happening every year. So you can think about that. For the future, not just this year, but for the future. But no, I just happened to go because Dirk Ashton. I consider him a friend, and I think he considers me not to be a stalker. So which is why I'm lucky. But no, he was very kind enough to him, Bryce O'Connor, Phil Tucker. Davis Ashura. I got to hang out with all four of them last year at DragonCon, so I was super, super, super pumped and super excited. So that was
nice. I would love to meet some people in the community. It's just like, do I want to? I think that's a lot of money to do all that travel and staying and stuff. And so, I go back and forth because I'm like, maybe I'll just wait. See if I become, a
fingers crossed your series becomes a huge hit, so then you can come on as soon as possible.
That would be great. But I say all these things, and it might sound like I'm complaining. I'm not. I'm blown away at how well my series has done so far, and the fact that we're a year almost since my debut, and the last 2 months has been kind of crazy in terms of like sales picking up and stuff. It's kind of wild. So I feel like, you know, it's doing really well compared to what I would have anticipated.
Hmm.
A lot of authors say you shouldn't compare yourself to other authors. I can't not do that. So like, you know, I compare myself to people all the time based on different factors like when we published and
Hmm.
uh, the type of book they wrote. Because I'm not going to compare myself with a different like genre and stuff like that. But uh, I look at like finalists of
Hmm.
SPFBO. I look at you know people who had the same kind of trajectory. I compare all these things, and I feel like I've kind of landed in the very, very, very lower part of the upper half.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I can't complain because I'm doing a lot better than a lot of people with only one book out.
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of reviews and ratings, and I've gotten really lucky with like exposure and some of the reviewers that have reviewed my books are, and so I certainly am not complaining, but even being you know that level of success, which is not that much, it's still like, oh man, it's kind of a kick in the head because you're like, holy crap, the amount of stuff that you have to do and sell to actually
Hmm.
make any money is insane. So I'm hoping that the line graph keeps going up, and we'll see.
Honestly, that's I hope that there's more success because it's actually good. Because you know what, the fact that you, or not just you, but all the authors are trying their best to come out with new books or come out with different ideas, it's a good thing because it gives more choice to us readers, right? Because otherwise, with traditional published, they just want one thing and one. Like if they think that this is what the readers want, they'll just give you more and more of that. And I think that has led to this indie fantasy boom because there's now books like for almost everything and anything out there, and then you just can dive in and you can keep on getting more and more and more. So hey, kudos to you for writing. I'm not a writer. I couldn't like it's not I could not write. I'm not a writer. Period. I'm always in awe of writers, people who can write or wish to write and do write. So kudos to you on that, sir.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, but it's a hard job, and
Hmm.
it's because of people like you who are willing to give people like me chances. That's the only reason we're able to do this. And so, even the reviewers who don't review my books, you're all wrong, by the way. Uh, I do appreciate the fact that you do review other self-published books, because you know, just the fact that people are willing to give us chances is just a wonderful thing, and it's very appreciated. And I know how much time it takes and how much investment you put into things that honestly don't benefit you, right? Like what I mean, you get to read, but it's not benefiting you personally, I don't think,
No, but I
to
mean,
write all these reviews, right?
I think of it as like I'm getting to read. I'm getting to read what I love. I'm
Right.
getting to do what I love. Writing a review is, yes, it can be work, but for some people it is fun. You know, the way they express their thoughts. So I mean, I I look at it as my way of giving back because I mean, besides buying the books and besides trying to tell other people to buy the books, this is the best way, right? Because your review can, even if it gives one more sale to the author, that's a plus. If it gives more than one sale, two, three, four, 10, 20, 50,
Right.
it's it's incremental, and sometimes it's not, it might not affect one, it might not even get one sale, but if enough people talk about the same thing, then if people get, oh, I saw this person talking about this book, I saw this person talking about this book, maybe I should check it out. It helps in that way. I look at it that way. So
Right. So actually, I have two things to say to that. The first is that when doing research, I think I read somewhere that before someone actually buys something, they need like 7 points of exposure. Um, Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It's probably a lot less in the book community. I don't know, but uh, the other point I was going to make is and it just went out of my head. I don't know what I was going to say, which is really annoying because that was like the big point. But it's great. I remember what it was. Sorry. I have fog brain sometimes. I can usually tell when I get a big review from like a big website or blog or YouTuber or something, because I check my sales way more than most authors. I know that a lot of people advocate for not checking. I can't help but refresh that thing about 15 times a day. When a review goes live from like a known blog that's like a big established thing in the community that people check or follow regularly, or a YouTube video goes live from someone with I'd say like 1,000+ subscribers. And again, this is no shade to anyone who's considered smaller. Obviously, every review is always super beneficial, and they often still get you sales. But when it's someone that's been in the community for a while and has an audience that's like decently sized, you will see on the graph or the chart of sales, you will see these spikes. And when you go back through the month, you can be like, oh, that's when the review posted from that person. That's when the review posted from that person. Oh, and that's when the review went live on that site. It's really funny. So it's very likely when you do post reviews, you are contributing quite a bit to sales. And that's, that's awesome, because even if it's one or two people, that could be another huge review. I did not have any reviewers interested in my book when I entered SPFBO because no one knew who I was. When I got reviewed and cut by Luke Winch, my review was, I mentioned earlier, pretty good. And as soon as that review went live, I had 2 reviewers contact me and ask for review copies. So those aren't sales, but those are more reviews. So John Morrow from Grimdark Magazine, awesome, and Sean from Fanfi Addict, Sean Chalant.
I don't know, but I know who you're referring to. Fanfi Addict is also a wonderful site, and John Morrow is amazing. He's a wonderful writer, and he writes like for Grimdark, and I think Before We Go blog as well. Lovely person.
Yeah, I just saw him post a review with them, and I was like, "What? When? What?" So I guess he's at both now. But you know what? I always kind of consider Grimdark Magazine and Before We Go blog almost like brothers.
Well, Beth Dabler is now the brains behind both of them. So she's the editor. She's the new editor for Grimdark Magazine. Kudos to her on that. And of course, she's the owner and the main brilliant mind behind Before We Go blog. Also coming up for SPFPO 9. So I'm very happy about that.
Yes, Joe. Road trip to Atlanta. So here's a funny story real quick. Atlanta, Georgia is an hour away from where my brother lives. I've been to Atlanta once because I flew in to visit him. He is now moving to Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm a little annoyed at that because I probably could have gone to Dragon Con pretty cheaply.
Yeah, and stayed at his house.
Exactly. Unfortunately, he will be gone in I think he has to move by the end of June for his job. So
around August and like end of August, September. So
right. So that's too bad, because I was thinking about possibly attending until that happened, and I was like, damn it, now it's going to cost way more. And also, if we're being honest with one another, I am like the world's most nervous traveler in terms of like, if I don't know where I'm supposed to go, I really hate traveling. And so I'm not like a good person to just like, I'll hop on a plane and land in this random city and I'll get there. I'm like,
that's a fair point. It's unnerving, especially in a big convention like Dragon Con where like there's more than 50,000 people. It's the only reason
I've never been to a con before.
The only reason I went is because Dirk was kind enough to be like, you should come. And then, he was my point of guide told me, and that's why last year I was able to attend, and I was so happy for that. This year is why I'm going back, because I know it's Dirk Ashton, Bryce O'Connor, Phil Tucker, Davis Ashura. I'm going to hang out with them, and I'm going to be with them everywhere. That's why I'm going. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
Oh, see, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think if I went with like a group or person or something that knew what they were doing, I would be much more willing. it's the whole idea is scary. The travel. I'm just not a traveler,
Yeah. Oh, travel isn't fun. Flying isn't. I can't go by train. If there was a train which was feasible, I would go by train. But I have to. I think I'm going to be working. I'm going to be crashing the red eye flight and then reaching Atlanta in the morning. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Nice. So I don't know. Maybe one day.
Hey, fingers crossed. I'll hopefully see you at Dragon Con. That'll be fun. And Joe, you too. You should also come.
Yeah, Joe and I should go together at some point. He lives not that far away from me.
Well, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
He lives right outside of New York City, I think, and so that's about 4 hours away from me. So it's like it's not close, but
no, but it's drivable. Everything on the East Coast is within driving distance, So
right, yeah. So I live like in New York by Pennsylvania, kind of. So
western half.
Yeah. Yep.
I used to live in Buffalo, so I kind of know that, guys. To travel.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to live in Buffalo. My mom and my father used to live in Pennsylvania. They were first near Philadelphia in Reading, and then they moved to Pittsburgh. So we used to travel all along over there.
Do you know the city of Corning?
I do. The Corning Museum. It's beautiful.
Okay, so I live like 20 minutes away from that city.
I know where you are, kind of on the highway towards New York City.
Or maybe it might be closer to half an hour, but I'm right there. I used to work in Corning, not the museum, but in the city. So yeah,
It's a cool city, small, cool place.
It's fine. I don't have a problem with it.
When you're in Buffalo and living in Buffalo, this was back in the in the early 2010s. Corning was
fair. I just if it says city, I tend to not like it. I just don't like the people. I don't like the traffic. It's too much. I don't like that stuff. Now Corning is not bad with traffic. It's not like a crazy place, but it's still more traffic than I really want to deal with. But you can drive through Corning and not hate your life. That's true. I live an hour away from Rochester, and I had to go up there for work sometimes, and I hate driving up there. And so I can't even imagine what Buffalo is like.
Yeah, it was okay. It wasn't that bad. I came from Mumbai, so after seeing Mumbai traffic,
kill myself.
Yes, that was like a whole different thing. I'm like, this is not bad. I was just I was telling this to my son, my eldest. He's about to turn 8. So he used to always complain about Portland's traffic. I'm like, this is not traffic. And then we went to Bombay earlier this year, and he saw it, and I'm like, this is traffic.
Yeah, Indian cities are insane.
They are.
I can't even with that. I've seen pictures. I've seen videos, and actually on the Apple TV, there is like these drone screensavers that like pan different things. Some of them are Indian cities, and I nope out of those real quick just from looking at that. Asian cities are some of the most wild things I've ever seen. First of all, their building construction can be crazy, but more so is their crazy ability to cram people into the one place. I'm like, how do you do that? Because you think you know a city in the US, and then you just look at some of these like Chinese or Indian cities, and you're just like, oh my God, how do people do that? Because that's like
space is a premium.
So, oh man, I just can't.
It is an absolute premium. Like, I mean, living in Mumbai isn't for everyone. The weather, the traffic, it can be horrendous. The food is amazing. The people are nice when they're not being mean, but they're nice. And you can't blame them, because it's like everybody's trying to go everywhere at the same time. So, tempers flare. But it is, and I can only speak for India, but India is a fascinating place. Again, I'm hugely biased in this. I'm not even claiming to not have bias in this. But no, it is like there are parts of India which, of course, Mumbai is super like busy, but if you go outside Mumbai, it is a lot nicer. I know I'd gone to Kashmir this time. I know you because when I posted pictures, you had mentioned that it was really beautiful. Kashmir is really beautiful as well.
Yeah, when you went on your trip and posted this picture, I was like, man, that looks really cool. I would love to go there sometime. But I would never. You would what?
I would recommend going to Kashmir. It is beautiful. Like the city
Oh,
of
yeah.
Srinagar, which is it's in the valley of Kashmir. It is gorgeous, just gorgeous.
Yeah, I just have that whole like traveling to random place like anxiety,
Fair point.
especially to a place like. Well, I think India is probably not that bad with English.
No, India. In fun fact, India has the most amount of English speakers in the world.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So I guess it wouldn't be too bad. I'm always afraid to go to a lot of, especially Asian or South American countries where there's like not a lot of English because I only speak English and I know that a lot of English travelers will go to places where people don't speak English and do fine. I am not someone comfortable. Like I don't want to struggle to be like, hey, I'm lost. Like, where the hell do I go? I want to just be like, hey, and they're like, oh, hi.
Yeah. Well, they will say that. Well, this is one of the very few things you can thank the British for because of their rampant colonialism. You can actually go to most of Asia and you'll be fine because almost everybody in Asia has second language is English because that's what you're taught. So you'll do just fine. And of course, avoid certain areas. I'm just not going to say that the whole of Asia is problematic, not problem free. No, there's some areas of Asia that are problematic. But yeah, you can go to India, you can go to the Southeast Asia, you can go to Japan, Korea. Those, of course, those are first world nations, so they don't count. But if you go to India, you go to Thailand, you go to Philippines, those are beautiful places. Dense, super populated, but beautiful places. And of course, Bali, because everybody just goes to Bali in Indonesia, which is a beautiful place.
I hear a lot of scary stories about traveling in Thailand.
I mean, you got to apply common sense as well. Like,
right.
Whenever you're traveling, you got to apply common sense. And, there are certain things which you can avoid doing. You can set up tours and stuff like that. So, don't go to seedy looking places. Number one thing.
Don't go travel outside alone at night.
Yes. Or you can go, but have a guide with you. The guides will be there because there are people who do that for a living. They're there for their reason. So you should be fine.
Yeah, I would love to do some world traveling. I've only ever gone to outside of the US. I've only ever been to Canada. And that doesn't really count because it's exactly the same as here.
But with Tim Hortons, don't forget, but with Tim Hortons.
Right. So I went to Niagara Falls once, and then I also went to Montreal. And Montreal has some French speakers, and that's about the only difference between here and there. Yeah. But I don't know. Canada's fine, but not like exotic traveling, So maybe one day I would.
Hey,
I would love to go to, the UK just because of how many authors I know that are there. So that'd be cool.
BristolCon. That's where all the UK indie fantasy authors hang out. Or next year I think there's the World Fantasy Con maybe at Glasgow in Scotland. So something to consider.
Yeah, lots of money.
That's hey, maybe you'll win the lottery. What's the harm in dreaming?
Well, as someone who used to be addicted to playing the lottery, I can tell you there's a lot of harm.
I say this as without buying a lottery ticket. Like, and I always dream of winning the lottery ticket, but I never buy a lottery ticket.
So. Right, you can't win what you don't buy, which was my philosophy as a younger person that I took to the too far extreme. I was like, you got to buy a lot or you're not going to win. Mm-hmm. And guess what?
You didn't win.
I didn't win. Well, I won money here and there from, like, I did a lot of the scratch offs, so I didn't do the number ones. But I think the most I ever won was like 600 on a ticket, which is not bad. but I had that stupid. Okay, well, I only won 600, so I'll buy more and try and get like the actual jackpot. Of course, that is really flawed logic, and I have since stopped buying them.
Okay, it's like I said, it's just a dream of mine. Like, I never buy tickets, but I'm like, oh, if I do, I'm just gonna buy a $2 ticket, because if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be.
Right, exactly. You know, I do have, I do want to get to like one more question that I had,
Oh,
uh, which is kind of a weird transition, but I know that we've been on here for quite some time, so I want to at least get this out of the way, because you mentioned before we came live, when we kind of ran through the questions, that this one was really interesting, and so I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. So we're transitioning back into COVID.
yeah.
COVID changed a lot of our lives, uh, and especially for readers and writers. And a lot of us just changed our habits by so much. Like, I wouldn't be a writer if COVID
Mhm.
didn't happen. I quit my job because COVID was trying, like, they were kind of screwing me over.
Mhm.
And so I wrote my book because of COVID. So, and I know reviewers that started reviewing when
Yes.
COVID happened.
Yeah.
So I know that you're way older than COVID when it comes to reading and reviewing. But I just want to know: did your reading or reviewing habits change because of COVID, and how so?
Well, they changed massively because a little bit of backstory. By the way, John's comment is really funny. Uh,
Yes, I took a micro nap, and you guys are still going. That's true. Uh, I forgot to ask me here before we went live, like uh, if he had a hard stop or how long he wanted to go, and like I haven't really thought about it. We've just been talking, and
it's just
so
been going. Yeah. No, but to get back to your question, sorry, I keep on sidetracking all these discussions.
oh, it's fine. It's
No,
been great, hasn't it?
we had we technically COVID was a little bit less tricky because the year before we had water damage in our house and we had to go out of the house. And then my
Yeah.
son was born when the water damage happened. So we were out of the house. We were with like a 6 7 month old baby, and so it was just hectic. And literally in January of 2020 we got back in the house, so we were just super happy. And then of course COVID hit, and so we went from like having the kids, two kids in daycare, to both kids being at home and my eldest just going into kindergarten. So the first few months were just chaotic. Like the internet wasn't working as smoothly because my wife was working, I was working, my son was logging in, and we had literally a 1 year old baby who was not going to daycare. So I had to take care of him while doing my job. My reading suffered. Like honestly, it just suffered. I could not. Even if I wanted to, I could not read because I didn't have the time. I'm the sort of reader who likes to read at long stretches.
Hmm.
So I could not, and I was kind of going crazy. And I'm also a big rereader. Like I can reread series which I love because it still gives me the same amount of satisfaction. 2020 was just a year of rereads for me because I didn't do much of reviewing back then. I just kept on rereading the books that I love because, of course, it was horrific outside. For those who are living in the US, they also know that that was a year of the election. So there was just like a whole. You go online and you'll be bombarded with stuff from political parties. I'm not blaming one or the other, but it was just. And then we had our president who was chaotic, to say in the most politest terms, totally out of his mind, to say in the most simplest of terms. But that was happening too. So all of that was just so much that I had to reread, and I was just happy doing rereading books. Like that was and of course I spent a lot more time online with trying to find people or trying to be on YouTube, trying to connect with other friends, whom I was like, oh, there's a Disney channel I can read. Special shout out goes to the Wizard Warriors and Words podcast
Oh,
group with
yes.
Jed Hearn, Michael Fletcher, Dirk Ashton, and Rob J. Hayes. They would drop a new episode every Monday, and that was so refreshing. I was like addicted to their podcast because I would they would just go on speaking on tangents. They would do these lovely interviews with authors. And then I was special shout out to Virginia McLean for doing QuaranCon, and then also David S. Walters for TBRCon because they kind of did it was the first time I noticed like both those conventions happening online. And it was so much fun. I got to participate in both of them. So yeah, that was what I did. I didn't read a lot, and of course, ironically, I actually read quite a few Grimdark books back then still. But yeah, I noticed that I didn't always want to read Grimdark back then, so I read a lot more lighter fantasy, so as to speak, or
Right.
thrillers. I just started going back into crime fiction because I'm originally I'm a crime fiction thriller mystery reader before I jumped into fantasy. But so I read a lot of those, but those are also can be dark, not as dark, some as grim dark, but can be dark depending on that.
Yeah, COVID did seem to shift a lot of people's reading preferences. I am not one of them. I don't really care what's happening in the real world. Like that doesn't change what I want to consume, I guess, for content. But I'm typically pretty good at separating like fiction from reality, I guess. Like, but I'm also someone who's not affected by anything in like books or shows or whatnot. Like, there's not see like that. Like, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I just, I'm curious as to what made you projectile vomit. So let me know. I'm a little perplexed. So I would like elaboration at some point. I don't aim on making people projectile vomit. But you know what? Any reaction is a good reaction.
After you buy the book, right? He can projectile vomit as much as he wants after he's bought the book.
That's so. Earlier we were talking about how if you are someone who doesn't like to read series until they're finished, I understand that, but I do think a good way of supporting them is to still buy the book, and then you can just save it, and then read it when there's the whole series that comes out. Because I understand that, but like, man, I just I want to. I don't know. I just
buy the books.
Yeah.
I'll just say
yes,
buy the books.
Buy the books.
Honestly, buy the books because it's someone's hard work, and that is unique. It's not like a TV show or movie where there's lots of people involved. A book is truly someone's imagination, them utilizing their imagination, writing as the best as they can, and putting it out. And one more thing I'll say for indie authors are hiring trying to spend a lot of money on good editors, really great cover artists and artwork, or and basically the whole spiel of like designing and typography and giving us books. Buy the books. If you want them, buy them in paperback. If you want, buy them in ebook, or buy both, or audio. You know what? There's audiobooks as well. Buy audiobooks. Buy the books.
One thing that indie authors are doing that I am shocked and amazed that traditional is not, at least not often anyway. That's hardcover books with. I'll show for people who don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry, I'm going to plug myself again because I don't have another option next to me. But so you have your jacket.
Yeah.
But the naked art on
I love that.
The book, yes. I think that more people should do this.
Yes.
Because it looks so cool. I just think that there's nothing that looks like cooler than having the full art with no words on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the people who want to have the words or the jacket or whatever can, if you're not a fan of jackets or you just want to see the art, you can rip off the jacket and throw it away or do whatever with it. But in traditional books, I don't see this ever, which is crazy because it is such a increase in quality. I feel like it just looks so much cooler than the bland, I don't know, blue or black or whatever, just plain cover, and they don't put the title on it or anything. It's just the boring, bland book. And I'm like, why? Like, this seems like such an auto win.
I think cost cutting. They're like, well, why should we spend more? Because I'm guessing there's printing cost to that as well. So I think
probably. I mean, the ink and stuff.
Traditional publishers are probably going to be like, if we can get like, let's say $35 for a hardback, how much less can we spend on making the hardback so that we can get the most amount of money? That's my guess.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So John brings up a great point
Kudos to
that
you,
even
sir.
if he gets an arc, he still buys the book. This is true because I don't remember. I think I sent John an arc of my second book,
Hmm.
and he said he was going to buy the physical. I think, and that happens way more than people realize. I think if you give out arcs, people still, and a lot of them tend to still want to support you and buy like a physical copy, and I think that's so cool because it just feels really nice to know that. Oh, see right there, I
Yep.
gave him an arc. He still pre-ordered the physical. Which thank you, John. I obviously love and really appreciate anyone that does that. But I'm just so amazed that reviewers in general are so open to doing that because it's like uh, I don't know. You just read the book. You know it. Like why are you buying it now? And
We love the pretty. It is like stuff like this is pretty, so
right,
we want that. Plus, I can only speak for myself. I love authors who's like, if I get it like a signed copy, that's even more precious to me. So
right, yeah, exactly. I signed copies. That's a trick. I was going to try and sign them and sell them from my website, and then I thought, holy crap, that's a pain in the ass. So I didn't do that. International shipping, I found out when sending physical arcs out,
oh dear
is
God.
way, way, way not worth it.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, I spent a lot of money sending copies out to a lot of people, and I was like, yikes, I really should not do that again because that cost a lot of money. So now I'm
Mhm.
a lot more, unfortunately, I'm a lot more selective about
No, you gotta
uh,
be. You gotta be.
sending them out.
At
Yeah,
least
it's
physical
like,
copies, because it makes sense, right? Because if you're sending them to, like, if you send it to
yeah,
somebody like Patrick, that's understandable. He reads a lot. He's, a big
I
name as
sent one
well.
to Patrick.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's understandable. But yeah, and yes, it is unfortunate. I used to be on the other side of this because when I was in India, I would always be like, oh, I can't get books because they're too expensive to even have them
Right.
shipped. But yeah, it's just it's not your fault. Like shipping is expensive.
It's crazy. It was like the most ridiculous amount of money per. I mean, it was like upwards of $30, I think, to send a book somewhere, and that's not
It's more. It's more. It's 50,
including,
60,
yeah,
even more, something like
that's right, and that's like not including the cost of buying the book,
that. Hmm.
and then sending it out, and oh man, it's rough, and also thank you very much, Simon. I do very much appreciate the support, of course. And yes, he was a beta reader. And of course, beta readers deserve their whole other section of praise.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you, everyone. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say real quick? I know you gotta go in a minute.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, and thank you to everybody who listened to us drone on about irrelevant
Yes.
topics for the last 2.5 hours. This is really wonderful. Just want to say, I hope you put out the link to Buzzard's Bowl so that people can pre-order that. That'll be helpful. For everybody else who's waiting for SPFPO, the submissions open on 17th May for 1 p.m. at British Summer Time. Link will be on Mark Lawrence's website. Just go to Mark Lawrence's website, or search Mark Lawrence SPFPO. You'll find it. There'll be a link over there. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter about SPFPO. Glad to clarify them. And thank you so much, John, for having me and listen to me, bother you with my opinions and hot takes, because this was fun.
Yeah, no, anytime you want to come back, I will gratefully have you. I love talking with you, Mihir. I just I don't know. I just really like our conversations. I think we were on what, two of Steve's. I think it was two of them,
Yes,
and those were
Steve
both
Talks
really
Books.
fun. Yeah,
Those were
Steve
fun.
talks books. He's great.
Hey, next time
Um,
get him on too over here, because then it'll be fun. It'll be you, me, him, and maybe one more person. We'll have them all. You should have them on your channel because that'll be more fun too.
oh yeah, we can all have our hot takes on things.
Yes, Steve's a lovely
uh,
guy.
He is. I love Steve. He's a great guy. Very nice. Everyone should
Mhm.
subscribe to him for sure. And if you're questioning SPFBO as an author who went through it, I will say that it is somewhat stressful, but ultimately really worth it, because it's kind of like paid advertising without paying, because there's a lot of people that pay attention to it. And even if they don't pay attention to SPFBO, Mihir does some amazing things, and so do some other reviewers and bloggers who take part, where they do things like, here's the top books that I'm most interested in, and they write a nice article. And I remember my book was in that list. And so, they do things like that. And it's kind of just like a bunch of, advertising. And before we go, I think,
oh, wow. That's really kind of you, Joe. I'm going to message you, though, about the Asian fantasy first, because I'm really super excited about that. After reading, or currently reading, as I'm reading Wistful Ascending, I want to see what's your idea behind the Asian fantasy, because I will love to talk more, and maybe we can talk more about having, interviewing you and stuff like that, because that'll be really cool.
Yeah, actually, Joe, you should send me a DM. If you're not, just send me a DM and say hey, so that I remember, because I don't want to. I shouldn't say this publicly. But you will appreciate it if you're not already part of it. But anyway, yes. So before we go, just real quick, Media Mail in the United States is fantastic. So if you're shipping, make sure you use Media Mail. If you're going international, does not help.
Yeah. Always use tracking. Please use tracking when you're shipping internationally, just for your safety of mind.
Yeah. Oh my God. I sent a book to Patrick Leo, and it took over a month to get there.
I know. The only reason why I know this is because I had to ship a lot of SPFU, those finalist coins. I shipped a bunch of them to like over 50 plus people, and they were literally all over the world. Like I'd sent a few coins to Australia. They all reached. Thankfully, none of them got lost. Sent stuff to Europe, of course, within America, Canada. So shipping was not fun. So I totally agree with you on that. But of course, mine was just like little coins. I had to package them nicely and everything. That was
shipping to Europe and Australia seems to go okay. Shipping to some of the Asian countries, I don't know what happens with the transfer to this land, meaning the U.S., to the Asian countries. Something happens, and I feel like the package is lost for like 2 weeks, and then they deliver it, and I'm like, what happened?
It's just weird. It's just
right.
Just weird.
I don't know, but anyway, Mihir, thank you so much for showing up. You are one of the best people in the community. Spectacular reviewer. I love that you showed up. Great friend. Everyone, check him out on Twitter. Check out the website. And I think that's it. So
awesome. Well,
goodbye, everyone.
We will Bye, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Mihir.